But yeah, like I've been checked out from the just from having like a real strong emotional reaction. Like I was very happy about Beast of Chaos. I saw that,
Well, of
but
course,
like,
yeah, had to be great news for you.
but the only thing that stopped me from playing Beast of Chaos was a once in a century global pandemic. It's not like I had stopped personally playing them, like I was
Sure.
still rolling them out. So it was more that I was residually happy because a lot of my friends who hadn't like dusted their Beast of Chaos in a while, were reinvested and reinvigorated, and
Sure.
it was like the best thing that Beast of Chaos like tome, or what are they, tome celestials, what they're calling
From
them.
Celestial, yes.
The
Yeah.
best thing the tome celestial did was renew people's interest in looking at the army through new eyes. Like,
Sure. Well, I mean, it was a good update.
yeah,
That's what it comes down to. We like to see a good update. Because it actually looked at the army and said, okay, what can we legitimately do here, right? That's going to be helpful.
right.
And it's like, well, these guys hit like a feather. This is a problem, which is just true. Like the
Mm-hmm.
beast did have a significant damage problem, and it actually addressed that, right? Because juicing the rend of the entire army turns out quite effective. Does a lot of extra, makes a big difference. I played a couple games with my beasts after the update, and boy, let me tell you what, yeah,
Yeah,
it's for real.
yeah,
And it's funny that sometimes a small change, and maybe you think that's small, maybe you don't, but I meant like small as in it's not a lot of words, right? Like we didn't have to go in and rewrite the whole
yeah.
tome, right? And by the way, it's not like the book is suddenly top of the competitive heap or
No,
something.
no.
But it can play. It can play games now, right? And that's cool.
The
That's what we all want.
the pro
Nobody wants to have the Slanesh tome.
Right,
That's what you don't want.
right. I mean, exactly. You don't. It was one of those very prescient, elegant changes. It played with like what was already in the army. It played with themes that were already going around because like
Yep.
Big Rend was kind of like a little bit in there. They just gave it a steroid, right? They gave it to it sooner.
Yeah,
Making
yeah.
it table wide
100%.
was genius. Like
Well,
Hearthstone
the
was,
the rend aspect had always been part of their personality from the whole like tearing down civilization
yeah,
and
anarchy.
entropy
Hell
and stuff
yeah,
like that. The
metal.
old version of the of the Hearthstone had that kind of same effect, right? So it wasn't like we just suddenly cut something new from whole cloth.
Yeah,
We just built on a good existing idea. Great.
yeah, yeah. I mean, that's the kind of shit I want to see more of. Like I love that, it staying in the identity, and doing something interesting with it, pushing the envelope a little bit. And no, like you said, nobody wants to like be old like Slanesh, like that oppressive force.
No, no, nobody wants to be Slanesh, period. I'm not saying old or new. They've never had an incarnation that people wanted. Because before they were way too strong and it was not fun to play.
Yeah,
Now they're really weak and horrible and they're not fun to play against.
that's funny.
Or sorry, flip that
Play
around. I
play
apologize.
as,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, yeah, they weren't fun to play against or to play because you felt like you were just crushing people without giving them a good game. Now you just die and you don't feel like you're able to give a good game. So it's yeah, that's what I'm trying to
Well,
say. Right.
and BCCast were kind of sitting in that place where like it took so much mental bandwidth to pilot them. I mean, you could win games, but the way you're winning games is by like setting up Fibonacci sequences of Ungor raiders and shit, and just not
Sure.
playing the game of Age of Sigmar, which is
Yeah, yeah.
whenever you're not playing the game of Age of Sigmar to win games of Age of Sigmar, and you're standing on that blade's edge of like someone running, just rolling really hot, so like tearing down your genius tactics, and there's no safety nets, there's no golden parachute for the army whatsoever. It's just you live or die on this blade's edge. That's not fair, or that doesn't feel fun. It can for like one game every 50. You dust off your Beast of Chaos and you're like, okay, I'm gonna lock in today, and I'm gonna play like out of my mind, and I'm gonna do these like cheeky little plays, and you know
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
but to do that every tournament a whole year, it's so fatiguing. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
so it's nice. I don't think they're pulled out of like totally out of the fire, but again, the best thing that the Tome Celestial did for Beast of Chaos was reinvigorate the fandom to look at them again, start bringing their Bolgors off the shelf, doing what I told people to do at the beginning of 3.0, which is start looking at Zangors, something they should have been running to begin with. Like, no, not should have been. Like, the goats are best. As a Beast of Chaos player, we don't really want to play with stupid fucking birds. We want to play with our sweet goats and bulls and monsters.
Well, I played with Zangor, and let me tell you what, it's real good with you.
I know, they're so good. They're so good, though. And Enlightened on Disc are like kind of back into the value, into like jockeying into that value position again.
Sure. I mean, I was using Skyfires, I'll be honest. Which, by the way, like Skyfires, I don't know when the last. Meph, do you remember what Skyfire's shooting profile is off the top of your head?
Not off the top of my head. I thought you were going a
One
slightly
attack
different
each
direction.
at 4s, 3s, neg 1, d3.
Okay.
Okay.
They used
That
to.
is a comical shooting profile compared to the shooting we have now. Remember when these guys were the scariest thing in the universe?
Well,
when everybody was like, Skyfires are the doom of man.
Well, original change host, like it was Skyfires, like were the unholy terrors of the universe. These moves.
Yeah. But I got him back out and read it because it had been so long, and I was like, wait, this is their profile? I'd been playing against like long strikes and crap like that, and I'm like, oh, this. Okay, now this is from a different time.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny how the technology has amped up, isn't it? And I see everyone's like sort of popping off. We can kind of go into the intro here. Snitbag showing up. My two favorites in one spot, dropping a tier 1 sub for 16 years of support. Thank you so much. Tomb King Tristan dropping his Twitch Prime for 22 years of support. SJ Arcade popping off for a tier 1 sub for 10 years of support. Yes, Snitbag, thank you. I knew Chat Gang would have my back. J.K. Simmons was the actor I couldn't think of the name of earlier.
Yes.
Fantastic actor. The Lord Will dropping a tier 1 for 8 years. Says, look at these handsome fellows.
Is he watching a different Twitch stream?
No, I think he's watching ours. We might break the internet tonight.
Them.
I think we're gonna paint Daddy and Rant Daddy in the same place. Oh God, don't get that shit moniker trending. Rant Daddy. Oh, why do I do these things to myself? The Lord Will dropping that tier 1 sub and then gifting a tier 1 to Hades Death God. He's given 24 of those gift subs. G-Dad popping off for 26 years, tossing out a gift sub of his own. And W. Soren, the Mad Lad, dropping a good evening from Texas and 31 years of support. So how's it going, everybody? Yeah, Skyfire shooting profile. Is it quaint? It's quaint. Ooh, we got a quaint blast.
It is. Quaint is the perfect word.
Oh, I love quaint is a fantastic word, by the way, and it's like I have a t-shirt. And by the way, happy St. Patrick's Day, everybody. I have some Guinness here. This is my last bottle of Guinness. I'll go through that. And then I bought this very, very special QV blend from Three Sheep's local brewing company here. This is basically their best of the year. They release it around all the craft brews they've done throughout the year. They essentially they do their Devil's Cut, and they make their QV blend once a year. Comes out around St. Patty's. So every year it's different. This is our 2022 vintage. So I can't wait to crack into that. So very, very special occasion. I'm, of course, your loquacious Lich King, taking you on a journey through all the adjacencies in AOS. I am the magical Mr. Mephisto, the most dangerous man in Age of Sigmar. Welcome to AOS RantCast 123. I'm joined tonight by the man who needs no introduction, the man with no name, Vince Venturella. How's it going, Vince?
Somehow those two things don't work together, but yes.
I
man.
I was like the man who needs no intro. I feel like I'm the man with no name. No name. Zap Brannigan was right where my just Futurama had the most PhDs of any show on network television's writing cast for a while there. It was overeducated writing room. So how's it going, man? How's it going?
I don't know. Pretty good. No complaints. Life goes on.
Not even a couple complaints about like Predators and Prey or some release at the beginning of the week or.
I mean, if you want to see my full thoughts, I delivered a 30-minute long diatribe on economics and their incorrect use, because it really is this is really just a story of economics. That's all it is. This is in brief. I won't repeat everything I said because nobody wants to hear that, but in brief, in the real world, let's say you want to make some kind of like policy happen. You want to have some outcome happen.
Mhm. Yeah.
Let's say you're a benevolent politician and your goal would be like, I want to make people less poor.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm down with this.
That's your
Yeah.
goal.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So you can't actually just do that, right? Like you don't, even if you're in government, you don't just have the power to like do that. You could say, well, you could just give people money to some degree, but even that isn't actually just automatically making them less poor. It is giving them money. But my point is like poverty, of course, is
Systemic.
systematic.
Yeah. There's a lot of interlocking systems that actually keep people. So you can give people a bunch of money, and whilst people sub the poverty line tend to inject that money back into the economy better than other folks, it still doesn't like uplift them from their socioeconomic status so easily. And we've even had a problem with throwing money at education, not pulling them out because these interlocking systems, like you just throw money into these schools, and it doesn't necessarily like benefit them in a one-to-one in the ways that we used to, because we have so many other systems wrapped around that, food insecurity, so like, yeah, okay, like
Yes,
they can go to school
housing
now,
and everything else.
yeah,
Exactly.
housing, like it's just, you can't ever really just like throw money, I want people to be less poor, it's never so one-to-one.
Right. So the point is that when you're sort of an actor like
Give
that,
people a microeconomics lesson here on RantCast. Let's go.
yeah. So, well, I mean, that's very much what this is. This is just them using economics.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, like, if you in the real world, you can't just take direct action very easily. There are some things you can do, but you don't always know what's gonna happen, and so on and so forth, right? And moreover, you can't, because things are so big, so complicated, because you have so little control over the entire system. Direct action that will actually immediately produce the outcome you want is nearly impossible. So instead, you attempt to use incentives often to modify behavior, right? So this is used all over the place.
Yeah, very Pavlovian, right? Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's just that's economics 101, and said people respond to incentives, right? Why is there a high tax on cigarettes, for example, or alcohol or something like that? Why do we have sin taxes? Well, because we don't want people to do that as much, and when we do, we want to use that money to pay for the medical care that those people then incur, or something, whatever. Like,
right, whatever it is.
Yeah. Plenty of incentive modifications. The problem with incentive modifications is that they often have unintended consequences. Regulations themselves often have unintended consequences. Okay, fine. In a game, the difference is you are God if you wrote the game, to quote Honest Wargamer, because I think Rob made a good point here. Government is limited, or people who make these kinds of policy decisions are limited. They can only do so much. They're just another human being, right?
Well, the interlocking systems the interlocking rules of the world versus, like, say, a game, they're almost like not even comparable.
Wherein you have total control.
Yeah.
Right? Like, direct action is very easy. If thing is broken, fix thing.
Yeah, you push the button and, like...
You can do that.
Yeah, right.
You own the thing completely, 100% and totally. No one else does. Right? The conversation begins and ends with you. And so, like, when you use it, you can use incentives in games. There's all sorts of incentives already in play in Age of Sigmar. But when you do so, you need to kind of be careful about how you apply them, where you apply them, what you're getting people to do, and so on and so forth. And the challenge here I have is that this system didn't actually address anything that was a problem. It created incentives without the underlying structure to support the proper use of those incentives. I'll be very direct with what I'm saying. So, Heed Knights of Slaanesh, for example, are a prime hunter, right?
OB Archers,
so you can get bonus points if you go kill the priority targets. But the problem is, that's like in the real world saying, we're trying to fight poverty. So here's what we're going to do. If you make less than this amount of money per year, and you put $20,000 into a savings account, we, the government, will match you dollar for dollar, but only if you deposit $20,000. Okay. Well, like, guess what?
Like,
yeah, obviously that's insanity, right? You would, if somebody proposed such a policy in the real world, you'd be like, that's lunacy, because of course nobody who's in a challenging economic situation is just going to have 20 G's sitting around to invest and double their money.
Yeah. If I could invest 20 G's free of, like, of consequence and then like just get money back, then I literally wouldn't be poor. I would be
Right.
rich. That's what rich people do. Their money
Or at
makes
least
money
I would
for
be
them.
at the minimum I would be not poor. Yeah.
Sure,
And
right.
but that's exactly what they've just said. That's literally the rule they just created because they said, hey, heed Knights of Slanesh or Gits or whomever who can't do damage.
Mm-hmm.
If you do a bunch of damage and kill these really hard to kill and like high value, hard killy things, we'll give you an extra point.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't clearing the bar to begin with, man. Okay? Like, that's not getting the point wasn't the problem here. Killing the thing was the problem. And you didn't do that at all.
Yeah.
So anyways, it's a misplaced set of incentives that won't actually cause the changes that they want. And Ulf Paint said he literally just had the same convo with behavioral science. I mean, it's behavioral economics, right? I mean, which is actually my area of interest and study.
Yeah.
And, you know, like, I just, like, I wish somebody like Richard Thaler played war games or something. I would just, like, I want somebody like that who could just read this and be like, no. Okay, look, here's where we're wrong. And it just really somebody who's that expert, because it's just completely off it's completely off the reservation on how these kinds of incentive structures should work. Yeah. Anyways, so there you go. If you want a much longer version of that that is still fast and clippy, it's timestamped in last night's video. Go check it out.
See, I wanted to watch. I had my whole plan, my whole day was set up today. I'm like, I'm gonna buy the expensive, awesome beer for tonight's show. I know you're far healthier than I am. So it was for me. It was my treat, you know. I'm gonna buy the fancy beer. I put on my brisket earlier today in the slow cooker. Got up early so that could low and slow and marry with all the spices and the deliciousness, so that I could have some a proper boiled dinner. I know it doesn't sound appetizing, but it's fantastic. And just whole day laid out. I'm like, I'm gonna listen to Vincey V's episode. I just catching some random just sentences from when the article dropped. I'm like, oh man, we're gonna get like Spice Vince on Warhammer Weekly. I can't wait to listen. I'm gonna turn it on in the work truck. I'm gonna leisurely bill a few tickets and drive around. And then I was on one job site for 9.5 hours, and like
Ouch.
the whole day just got away from me. So thank you for kind of resetting that and giving me the annotated version. Obviously, me being a benevolent podcaster, supporting the smaller content creator here, really platforming you and giving you a chance.
I appreciate that, man. Really do.
To share
We gotta boost the signal.
Yeah, boost that signal, right. Roybo's dropping a tier 1 sub for 4 years of support. He says that's almost 3.5 years. Yeah, no, that's almost the right amount. Yeah. Turns out if you kill the giants, you can beat them. Yeah. GW thinking we didn't know.
Yeah, we all, like, wasn't the problem.
Yeah.
I wasn't trying to not kill things before, man, but thanks.
Well, I mean, in a different era where target priority, where like I remember for a long time, our conversations in like AOS 1.0 were trying to get people to think about like win strokes and target priority, and
Yeah, sure.
And for a spell, I could see some of that making sense. Where like, if the problem was you weren't targeting the right stuff, but I think my favorite part of this, I made one Twitter post personally about it, and my favorite part of this is it shows that Games Workshop has at least identified the, I'm going to use I'm going to say perceived problems. Right. They know where the
No, they're problems. It's fair to say that. They're problems.
Sure.
Like, they have identified the problem units. I don't disagree at all.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's one of the things I listed as a strength during the show.
Yeah.
Because, hey, you knew what was wrong. Cool. Why didn't you just fix those? Because you literally sent this article to me that has a list of the problems.
Yeah. Yeah, and my favorite part is they identified the problems. And then they go, but you deal with it. And like,
Right.
It was such a, It reminds me of Master Shake and Aqua Teen Hunger Force when he goes to give like the like give an excuse to get out of doing something. And he's like, I do it, but you just do it, and you just hear him mid about to give an excuse and just give up on even
Right.
giving an excuse and tell someone else to go do it. And it was very funny to me. I did like that there were. I do like that they're trying new things, but this isn't the time to try the new thing. You have these armies that just can't do the thing to begin with. These prime hunters, right? Like it's not target priority. They're not. Gee, I wish I had thought of killing the Mega Gargant, right? Like,
Right.
I thought it. Um, it's a list of Facebook's most hated. I mean, yeah, there's some of that going on there, right? And that's the other
Sure.
thing is like this is a list. In 6 months, is that list going to look the same? We have a new GHB coming out. Are they going to have to? They're going to have to just keep going in and making a new list. That worked so great when they had to keep updating what things giants could step over.
Exactly the same point I made. It's what we call technical debt in the industry. Yes, correct. It's a massive problem they just made for themselves.
Yeah.
Like their best bet is to hope that this fails tragically, as I hope it does. Like no offense, but I hope it does. And then they can just quietly shuffle it off into non-existence with the release of the GHB in the summer and eliminate this problem from themselves. That's the best case scenario for them.
That's funny. That's funny. I see. I like spicy Vince, but we're gonna coax out fun Vince. We're gonna get Skig himself to show up tonight. That aside out the way here, I felt like a little bit of the elephant in the room. It was I haven't personally been live in a couple weeks here, so I had to. I'm sure people were going to ask me anyway. I had to personally weigh in, and what better way to weigh in than to just co-opt your message and use it as my own. But tonight it's the Great Enhancing. We're continuing the series.
Yeah.
We're doing Skaven artifacts this evening.
Yeah, man.
And yeah, so I don't know. I don't think I really need to introduce it much more than that. Artifacts are a they're an kind of like a pet area for me. I think artifacts are a way to really.
You keep talking for a second. I just realized I'm missing important reference material for this.
Okay.
I have some, but I don't have everything. Keep going.
Sure.
I will be right back.
Yeah, should I? Yeah, I think I can talk. I think I'm good at
Just
that.
vamp.
Yeah,
Just
yeah,
go.
yeah. So, for me, like artifacts are um a really handy way to inject some identity into an army, get across sort of like those first principles. What is an army? What does it do? What should it do? What should it look like? You know, they're just that's where the zest, that's where the flavor is. You know, everyone who plays fantasy can think of a token magic item from some story that they read that was where they became a fantasy nerd, right? Whether it's the Ring of Invisibility in The Hobbit or whatever it is, like you just fuck man, King Arthur's sword, Excalibur. Like it's to me, it is synonymous with what makes fantasy to have sweet magic items, right? And make no mistake, AOS is a mythic fantasy setting. This is a fantasy's fantasy. This is over the top, and so the artifacts should follow. It feels like Games Workshop learned the wrong lesson from the maligned Portents artifacts, where they had just this robust list of 30 artifacts, 10 that were used, 20 that were ignored, and 2 that were busted, right? And they're like, oh, let's just take this baby and toss it out with the bathwater. And persistently, they have had issues. Just it doesn't matter what the battle tome is, releasing just like good artifacts for stuff. So, just giving them some inspiration, letting them kick their feet up, and just feel free to steal these ideas, Games Workshop. It's fine. We work hard so you don't have to. Yeah, Mephisto, if you could try to rant some. I know it's not your gimmick or anything. Yeah, I'll try to fill the dead air. It's really gonna take its toll on me. Actually, I'm feeling it. If I'm gonna be honest with y'all, chatting, I'm feeling a little off my game, like a little bit today. And reference material. He dual wielding Skaven battle tomes. Look at that.
I'm missing my like fourth or fifth edition one, whichever point it came out. I know I have it. I just couldn't. It's not in my bookshelf. I must have. I took pictures out of it for a video, and I must have set it aside somewhere, which makes me very angry.
Yeah, that
So
sucks. Yeah. They stole your Rorafact in Nurgle. See, that's awesome. Good on them. I hope that I hope that it really was them stealing. Like they had one bad artifact there, and then they. Let's be honest. They didn't watch RantCast, but somebody that they listened to watch RantCast, right? And they stole the artifact, pass it off as their own. And good. Do that. Do more of that. Games Workshop. Steal these ideas. They're free.
indeed.
Make the game better. Um, Damn, he has the battle tomes for the future edition. So yeah, so I just kind of, but now each one of us. So one thing that's been important for the Great Enhancing is that everyone's kind of got their own like approach to artifacts, like what it is that they're looking to inject into it. Obviously you have a background in design, so I think I think your approach to this is going to be pretty. Well, what was your approach to this? I guess I'll ask you. What were your first principles? What were you looking to do for Skaven?
Yeah, I mean, there's pretty simple principles, right? So, like, I think about these probably the same way they do, which is from a top-down perspective, right? You start with sort of the theme and flavor of the army, and you want a selection of items that are interesting and compelling to select. That doesn't necessarily mean competitive, okay? But it does mean interesting. And interesting is the guiding principle above all. That means it could be interesting to narrative players, it could be interesting to competitive players, but it's interesting. It's something that goes, oh yeah, that opens up new play styles, or plays into one of the major themes of the book, or is just super cool and Warhammer, right? Those are the kinds of things I want to see. So yeah, pretty straightforward.
Yeah, right on, right on. And I'm gonna basically let you do all the heavy lifting. I got to ease back to ranting this. I took 2 weeks off. I didn't know I was I was running a million one shots. Everybody, it's fine. I wasn't really gone. Let's see. Free amulets for everyone. Death to amulet of. Oh wait, man, checking popping off tonight. Um, so yeah. So I don't know. How do you want to navigate through? Do you want to go like sub factions? Do you want to, well, quote unquote, clans? Do you want to? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so the way they're organized in the current book, and if we're sticking to just artifacts and not command traits,
You can
right?
do command traits as well. This is the enhancing, so I think that incorporates enhancements as well.
I mean, there's a lot. That's the only reason I ask, right? I mean, this is an unusual book because it's so thick, right? As far as like the different stuff goes.
hmm
So really, whatever makes sense is fine with me. Um,
I'm remember
but the
I'm
Go
remembering
ahead.
my own format. This is an opportunity, an excuse to talk about Skaven, kind of catch up with where they are in general,
Hmm.
where their artifacts were, and where we hope they might go, and then kind of go into the artifacts themselves or the enhancements themselves. So
That's fine. I was just flipping through because I found a quick PDF of the old fourth edition Skaven book, and as I was flipping through the history, I got into the death of Nagash. Ah, good times. All my favorite memories here. One of the many times we've been responsible for that moron's downfall.
I mean,
Um,
they chopped off. See, speaking of artifacts, they chopped off his hand, and that's why I had a sweet Black Hand of Nagash artifact in my undead army. I don't know why I'd be upset about that. Like, what the problem is? He comes back. Like, cool.
oh, indeed. That's I would hope so. It means we get to kill him more. It's
uh,
great.
yeah, yeah, extra thick. Yeah, with
Um,
three C's, thick.
So yeah, I mean, I think that let's stick to artifacts for the moment because command traits are kind of
hmm
whatever.
Right.
But like the nature of Skaven stuff in general is and always has been it's kind of wacky, right? Like that's the concept of the thing.
hmm
The army is wacky. It's goofy. It's insane and crazy and everything else that you would expect. Like it it does stuff randomly. It blows up its own troops. It's very much about fodder and things like that, right? And uh, yeah, I think that kind of stuff I want to see continue. I want to see that kind of theme, but you can do that in a good way, like they did with a lot of the other, like the rest of the book.
Mhm.
Um, that makes it so you so that like you don't aren't forced into playing in that way. Like you can do the normal thing and it's okay
Mhm.
at best, or you can risk it for the biscuit,
Right.
right? That kind of stuff is how they did a lot of the randomness, and that was great. That was a very good choice. Like,
Yeah.
way to go.
Yeah, if you hold the shoulder buttons down, you can overheat your mech and lock it out type thing, but you can really spike. Otherwise, if you don't want to do that, you can play it safe and have like some sort of average result or some sort of bell curve. I mean, that's a good place for it to exist. I also do think in general, like talking about like the fodder aspect of Skaven, that helps you in your generalship. We have this problem. People have this problem when they start playing like a war game of like thinking all their models are too precious.
Sure.
Skaven immediately like ingrains in your mind that everything is a resource to be sacrificed, and that's a great
Of course.
headspace to start playing in. Oh, like in terms
Yep.
of like tactically. Undead
Yep.
does this too. This is why I really like death, obviously. Um, so um,
So, okay, let's talk about the history of Skaven magic items. Because I now have I got out these old books because I wanted to make sure I had a good record of all the old magic items.
mhm,
Because the first place I'm always gonna look for my magic items is what were they before?
mhm.
And what did we leave behind that we shouldn't have? Okay.
Right.
Um, because the here we go. Um, because the reality of the thing is, looking to history, uh, we have all we need. This game's history is so long and so rich. We wouldn't actually need to make much new stuff. Now we can. I like new stuff,
hmm
but I also like wackadoo old stuff.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, some of the, some
So
some of the most fun components are things that just kind of get to stick around, right?
yes.
Hand in a gosh as a spell, like I'm hiding a die. It's wacky, it's weird. Like that's the kind of stuff I enjoy. Um, you know, when I did the Great Enhancing for Soulblight Gravelords, Self Honk. If you're new to the Great Enhancing, this is your first episode. There's been several of them so far. I brought back the Blade of Summoning. I'm like, why isn't the Necromancer sword that brings in a bunch of skeletons still in this army? Like that seems like
Right.
it's just a slam dunk of an artifact. Is like, here's the blade that lets me summon stuff. Like, cool, awesome. That's what I want, right? Like that's what I
Right.
signed up for. As I want to summon skeletons to the field. That's like right here says on my resume things I'm good at. like,
Yep. Yep.
so yeah, continue.
No, I mean that's I think that's exactly right. Um there's just so much good stuff through the history of these old books. And by the way, some things did continue on for sort of all the books. Like for example, Skaven Brew exists in every book uh going back to like fourth or fifth or whatever the oldest book. And still is there now and should always remain. It's a super classic item,
Mhm.
right? Um and it's done different things at different times. Uh, but it's cool. So I like stuff like that. So do you want to start with like let's do this clan by clan? Is that fair?
Yeah, I think that's a good way to break it down.
Okay. So we're gonna start. I'm gonna go the same order they go in the current book. Okay.
hmm
So let's talk about Master Clan. So this is your leaders, your Grey Seers, and people like that, right?
hmm
Now, right now, what's in this space, okay, is the Warpstorm scroll, uh which is stupid. But again, does have a legacy. The Warpstorm scroll is in this book, and the Warpstorm scroll is in this book as well. Uh this one.
hmm
So, and I think the Warpstorm scroll is in, yes, it is in the oldest book. So here, We have a super legacy item, so we're gonna keep it.
I
We're gonna
love
keep
I
that
love
name,
I
right?
love the subtle flex going on right now of Vince just like Roronoa Zoro from One Piece, just like tri-wielding battle tomes from
Sure, he's got a lot here.
uh
This thing's always been around. But let's look to history, Meth, because you might ask yourself, what did the Warp Storm Scroll used to do?
yeah, I
All
asked
right.
the exact thought I had when you said, I'm like, what the fuck is that? I don't know what Skaven are.
Okay, let's start in our oldest reference. Warp Storm Scroll. This is from the 4th edition tome, where it was still cards, little magic item cards.
Mm-hmm.
This was a 50-point magic item. The bearer can cast this spell in the Warp Storm Scroll in his magic phase. No power is necessary to cast the spell, as the scroll provides the power required. The scroll can only be used once, like a scroll, like a D&D scroll, because early Warhammer is just a knockoff of D&D. When the spell is cast, all models which are flying high, I love this, suffer D6 strength 6 hits. In the case of a monster rider, combinations divide the hits randomly as you would from missile fire. In addition, all models which are flying high are forced down to the ground and will enter the table on their own table edge in the following turn. Very good item. Flying high was a thing you used to be able to do. You could basically put yourself in reserve, and then you could come back the next round.
Mm-hmm.
That's what flying high was. Okay. So then in the next book, which is this one, gotta go in order here. Okay. As we continue on, still this has been a 50-point magic item, like all its existence, by the way. 50 points. Scroll, bound spell, power level 5, one use only. All units of flyers within 24 inches of the caster suffer D6 strength 6 hits. Flying monsters and their rider within range also suffer D6 strength 6 hits. Randomized like shooting. Okay, cool beans. And then in the last book, the Warp Storm Scroll did the exact same thing. So exactly the same.
Mm-hmm.
What's the same here, Meph? You notice a theme about the Warp Storm Scroll?
Yeah, so I'm noticing the theme to be it's some sort of like aerial storm of some sort that hurts things, and in its best versions, since it's kind of a once-off, it gives you a tactical advantage in that it removes somebody's tactic that they have paid points conceivably for their model to do that thing.
Right, because Skaven's big thing is they don't have flyers, right?
Yeah,
that's one of the classic limitations of Skaven, like no flyers.
Mm-hmm.
So okay, seems like a real, and that's hence we had this neat scroll that also gave us power against flyers and really punished them. Like D6 strength 6 hits is no joke in Warhammer terms.
Especially when it was like table wide in the one iteration, right? It's like all of them.
Yeah, just everything, all of them. But instead, it became this silly thing within 13 inches that 50% of the time did D3 mortal wounds to just kind of units. Dumb. We're striking that off of the list, and instead, here's what we do. You ready? Warp Storm Scroll. Okay. Once per battle in your hero phase, you may summon the magic of the Warp Storm Scroll. When you do so, until your next hero phase, all flying units may no longer fly, and their move speed is halved. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
In addition,
got it.
Roll a d6 for each of these units on a 4+, like table wide. On a 4+, they take D3 mortal wounds. There we go.
Brilliant. I love it.
Now we've got an item that you might want to use, even though it's once per battle.
That's the thing, is like when you're making a once per battle item, it needs to be very good. It needs to justify its one usage. I'm not patently against them. It's just when they are random for a once per game, like get out. Just immediately get out the game. Like you have no place here. And then it needs to have a powerful effect. It needs to be worth. It should, honestly, the once per game should like pique my Timmy interest. I should look at it and go, ooh, can you feel the power?
SDR kid said knife on in shambles. Yeah, you're darn right.
Yeah.
Get on the ground, ghosts. You ain't going nowhere.
Yeah, you ain't going nowhere. I got you for one battle round of playtime. Like just
Right? Like that's a fun artifact.
yeah, yeah.
And again, it's for one turn, right, until your next hero phase. So it's not doing anything on the double. Because if you go twice, nothing happened. You did maybe a few mortal wounds to units, right?
Yeah.
So it's actually quite weak on your double turn.
Mm-hmm.
You want them to have a turn in between there, so they actually suffer the penalty since you're activating it in your turn. It's great fun,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, like turn out Skaven no fly zone. Yes, I agree. I agree. Distracted satrap.
Yeah. Yeah. Brilliant. Um, Ortorius saying,
Now,
"I was there when the dark magic was written."
yeah.
Going back to the magic cards. Yeah. Great.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I used to play with these all the time. That's why I'm pissed off I can't find my old book. I had it out to take some pictures for a project that I was doing, and I must have set it somewhere that wasn't back in its appropriate place, which is unusual of me. I'm usually pretty OCD about this kind of thing, but who the heck knows?
Yeah.
Maybe I lost it. Maybe I gave it to someone. I don't know. Either way, I'll find it.
I see. I want to track down a fourth ed, just for my own pure nostalgia. I want to track down a fourth ed undead army book, right? It's an army book back in the day, just because that was where I got my start. But like, if I open it to the back, and the cards are already like ripped out or non-existent,
Sure.
I'll just like cry, like because that's.
You got to go to an auction. You got to find that unpunched copy, my friend.
Oh yeah.
All right.
I'll find it one day.
Let's keep going.
Yep. Yep.
Item number 2 on the list, because this is going to take a while if we
Yep.
if we don't.
Yep.
And I do have some limited amount of time tonight, so I can't go forever, just so you know.
All right.
Suspicious Stone gives you a 5-up ward save. You know what? Check. We're keeping this effect. Awesome. But we're renaming it back to what it should be called, which is the Foul Pendant, which is what this exact item was called in both the older books, where it was called the Foul Pendant, which was a talisman, and this wicked token of the Horn Rat's power confers a 5+ ward upon the bearer. It did literally the exact same thing for 2 different books. Great. Keep it. Give it its old name. Suspicious Stone or Foul Pendant. Which one's cooler? Obviously, Foul Pendant is cooler.
Well, I find the latter to be sus.
Sure. Sure. That stone is wicked sus, yes. So that one's easy. Cool. Okay. The Gnaw Shard. The next one. They got real too involved in this kind of gnaw being used as a word here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Pick one of the bearer's melee weapons. If any wounds inflicted by that weapon are allocated to an enemy model and not negated, that enemy model Nope, stop. I lost interest 5 sentences ago. Okay. We're not doing this. For the caster heroes, we're not giving them the weird, if you do damage and they're not negated, then all of us, then you get to like randomly do an additional wound for the rest of the game. Wow, thanks for that. At the end of each battle round, by the way, it's not even turn. Battle round. Enjoy those 3 additional mortal wounds you very likely have a save against. Awesome. What a fantastic item. Now, obviously, we're catapulting this thing into the sun. Okay? Like, good lord, that is terrible.
Right.
Okay? And instead, we're going to bring back something that should have been there, that was jettisoned, but again, has been there for the entire time, and that is the Bands of Power. Okay? Wonder Woman! So, for 3 books, the Skaven had this thing called the Bands of Power. All right? In its original incarnation, the Bands of Power can cast their spell 3 times during the battle, once per magic phase, like an ordinary spell. Pretty good. So it's like a triple use item.
Mm-hmm.
No power cards to cast. When the spell is cast, the wearer doubles his strength to a maximum of 10. This lasts until the start of the player's following magic phase. Get some ripped up rats, right? Okay, cool.
Like your Grayseer has like the Bane collar and
yeah, just juices up.
Yeah.
In later books, this would become basically the same thing. It would actually get cheaper because the people realized it wasn't that good on casters. But it's fun. Keep in mind, there are Vermin Lords in this as well, right?
Right.
But they would basically do the same thing where it would double your strength. Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. So what do the Bands of Power become now? Well, we're gonna keep that item, but we're gonna call it like we're gonna add an extra adjective to there. Maybe like the bands of dark power or the bands
Corrupting
of
powers, something like that.
corrupting power,
Yeah,
something like that. Yeah.
yeah.
Cool, cool, cool. Cool, cool, cool. Okay. And obviously this is going to be an item for a Vermin Lord, right? For your Master Clan Vermin Lord. Or if you want maybe a really crazy Grey Seer on a Screaming Bell or something, right?
Right.
Who just wants to really make that one stick attack hurt. And what we're going to do is the bands of power aren't like a spell or a thing you do anymore, right? It's just going to be an item that says uh you get +1 to hit, +1 rend, and on a 6 to wound, do a mortal wound. There you go.
Hmm?
Easy. See? Simple. They don't have to be amazing. It was a simple mechanical thing before, double your strength. Let's keep it a simple mechanical thing now. +1 to hit, +1 to rend, and on a 6 to wound, you do a mortal wound in addition.
Yeah.
Easy.
Yeah.
Great.
You know where
Fantastic.
you know what its use is. You know where you're going to put it. This says, "Hey, take this on the Vermin Lord." Like those artifacts that kind of help you build the army, and
Yeah.
they,
Cool. I can make a more combat-y Vermin Lord, right? Yeah,
yeah.
great. That's a thing some people like. Like you want to have your Vermin Lord get in there and tussle,
Mhm.
right? With some of the other big things.
Yeah,
Sounds
see,
awesome to me.
Corruptor could. I know Corruptor didn't have the best combat profile, but it could nothing personnel kid you. It could teleport behind you and like try to kill you with re-rolling
The
hits.
Deceiver, but
Yeah,
yes,
yeah, sorry,
exactly.
Deceiver. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like
Yep.
that's fun. Like yeah, let's do that.
Right. Skaven Brew is basically fine. We can keep it exactly as is. It's been there since the beginning. It used to do fun stuff where you rolled a die and then it would like cause you to be frenzied, cause you to gain hatred, or cause you to be frenzied and hatred, or various effects like that. But you also took damage. It's fine as it is right now, where like you choose to do it, um, and you give the people the sippy cup of the soup, and then that unit gets +1 attack, but takes D3 mortals. Perfectly fine. Perfectly very, very Skaven effect.
Mm-hmm.
I have no issue with this item. It's a great item.
Yeah.
Keep it. Right?
Right.
When you got a winner, no need. It's
Right.
fine.
Right.
It's a cool item. Okay. So one of the things that you used to be able to do here remember how magic standards were a thing?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. You actually had to upgrade like individual like standards and your command units like kind of individually. You had to buy them and stuff like that too back in the day. So getting a magic
Sure.
standard was kind of like the hotness.
It was cool.
Yeah.
It was cool, right? Um so the uh there were a lot of cool magic standards. And we're going to put one of them in Clan Verminus because that's the sort of warrior clan, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to put one of them into the master clan, okay?
Okay.
With the idea that we could have like a Grey Seer who's got maybe his own personal banner with him, just because it's cool.
Well,
And there was actually a lot of different banners around, but go ahead.
well, the other thing that was cool about this, I'm reminded immediately of like why Thermal Rider Cloak was such a great artifact, and it wasn't just that like yeah, fly is fun, but like you saw people like modeling their cloaks onto stuff. The sort of artifact where like people are all buying Archeon's cape and putting it on a tank now in Cities.
Yeah,
of Sigmar.
sure.
Like that stuff's great, and so now you can imagine. Well, now I have an excuse to like model this banner, this just outrageous, green stuffed together hodgepodge of like 4 different banners and just the huge, and I have the Skaven Gracier on top of the bell climbing it like Iwo Jima, and just like waving this banner. So I like stuff
Yeah,
like
and
that. Yeah.
Skaven had really amazing banners throughout the times where they got magic items. Like there's a ton of really, really cool banners. Um like some of them were just cheap but really funny. Like the dwarf hide banner, it's literally just skinned dwarves. Like dwarf skin, and the unit gained hatred of dwarves. Like that's fun.
Yeah.
Okay, that's not what we're gonna put here, but like what a fun concept. Okay.
Right.
And instead, here's what we're gonna use. We're gonna use my favorite old one this is from the 6th edition book. This one. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So, which by the way, there is one that you can just drop straight in. This isn't the one I'm gonna pick, but check this one out. The Branner. Branner. I don't know why that's its name. Umbranner. Like Umbra Banner, I guess is what the idea is.
Mm-hmm.
All models in the unit carrying the banner receive a 4+ ward save against all normal and magic missiles. With strength 4 or less, meaning a 4+ ward against magic, right? Like you could just drop that straight into the game now. Lots like sticking that kind of crap around is fine, but that's not what we're gonna pick. Instead, we're gonna pick the banner with the coolest name out of the 6th edition book: Banner of the 4 Black Winds.
Metal. Like I can hear the
Holy
guitar.
crap!
I
That
hear
is
the
so
guitar.
metal.
Yeah, I hear the guitar riff as you say it. Like in my like yeah, sweet. All right.
Yeah, Banner of the 4 Black Winds.
Yeah, like
He
they.
rides the 4 black winds. Like, oh Christ, I'm not messing with this guy, whoever they are. Okay. Flying models wishing to charge the unit carrying the banner must use their ground movement value and cannot use their flying movement to charge. Because remember, your flying movement used to be like a totally different number, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Cool concept, obviously. Cool name. What are we doing with it now? Okay. What we're going to do with this concept now is we're going to continue to push a little bit into this sort of like flying thing, but also into the control and the sort of Skaven-y thing, right? Now, obviously, you can't have this dude join a unit, okay?
Right.
But what we're gonna make this banner, this Gray Seer item, okay, is it's going to be an item that says any attempt, like whenever an enemy that has flying attempts to charge this unit, the bearer of this magic item, right? They have all charge rolls.
Brutal.
Okay? That's it. It's that easy.
Yeah.
Right? So specifically flying things have all their charge rolls, right? If that's not enough, I'd want to think about it a little bit. But if that's not enough, which I think that probably is enough, but if it wasn't, you could also say like, and the model gets a 6+ ward against all attacks made by flying units or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody already has a ward in the army. So it's like almost all Master Clan people already have a ward. So maybe not that. Maybe it's like, and flying units are neg 1 to hit them with melee attacks. Maybe that's the other way to go. That's fine.
Mm-hmm.
Something little like that they can easily counter out with an all-out attack, right?
Right.
Cool beans.
Yeah,
but it's only for only for flying models that attempt to charge that particular thing,
mm-hmm.
right? Your guy, don't charge me, right? I ride the 4 black winds. Cool.
Don't charge me, bro. You got the blood slicked air.
Yes, blood slick air. Yeah, exactly. Okay. So then let's see, where do we want to go here? The last item. By the way, there was a bunch of this. Skaven used to have a bunch of this kind of stuff. The like screwing with your charges. Like an item that when I thought about this that I didn't want that I would have loved to use, but there's just no way we're sneaking it in, is the Pipes of Piebald. What a hilarious name. It's little like doo-doo-doo pipes. Like they were playing their own rat catching pipes. And it made it so people just have their charge against you. Like whatever. It's funny stuff.
Yeah. No,
the other one I think that I want to pull here is an item that should have been kind of around, which is the Eye of the Horned Rat. Exactly, right?
It's like so bad.
Great name.
Yeah.
So what it did at the time was the wizard can decide to activate the eye at the beginning of each of his magic phases. On a result of 2 to 6, add 1 power dice to the power dice pool. If a 1 is rolled, no dice are added to the pool, and instead 1 dice is removed from the pool. So right there, you can already see that's the design of modern Skaven Risk.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
Like that's it. Because it's like on a 2+ you get this, on a 1 something real bad happens and you in trouble. Right?
Yeah.
Uh-oh, we're in trouble. Okay? So, fantastic, right? What you do with this, with the Eye of the Horned Rat, since most of Master Clan are also spellcasters, right? Is you say that the bearer of this item can reroll casting, unbinding, and dispelling rolls. Okay? However, each time they choose to do a reroll, right? Each time they choose to make a reroll of any kind, they must then roll a d6. On a 2 through 6, nothing happens. On a 1, they are treated as having miscast. Okay? The spell automatically fails, the unbind automatically fails, or the dispel automatically fails, and they take d3 mortal wounds.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful.
Yeah, straightforward.
Right. There you go. Easy. Master Clan done. Cool items, right? You got a spellcasty buff. You got some cool things that are just like neat utility. You got some protection and defense in different kinds of ways. And you got Skaven Brew for a nice buff. Good mix.
Yeah, yeah, good range. You know where you're taking, why you're taking it, why you're building stuff with it. Um, so I've taken a couple notes. I will circle back around to a little bit later as a sort of broad thing. But moving on, what's up next? You got your Master Clan. I mean, Skryer is best, right? Skryer and Eshen.
Skryer is best, yes. Oh my goodness. Yes, we're gonna go to Skryer next. So um the so the first item on the list is the brass orb. Beautiful. It's stupid. The only thing we're gonna change about it, we're gonna keep the brass orb. I love it. It's so dumb and wonderful. We're just gonna change it so that it's in the shooting phase. Okay.
So you like that's
So you can actually move up and get at somebody
yeah.
and throw it at them. Okay. And then on a 6, they're slain. You still have to be within 6 inches.
Mm-hmm.
On a 6, they're slain. But since I'm putting it after movement, I'm gonna also put in the rule that on a 1, you're slain. Okay. There you go.
I see. I would have like you're moving like I would put it after movement. 1 you're slain, 6 they're slain, and then just give it some like minor buff, like I don't know, +1 to casters. It just some arbitrary bonus while you're just holding it because you're just obsessing over using it, and it's like giving you a surge of power. Like +1 bravery is a good one. You know, like you like you feel so like you have +1 bravery because you feel so absolutely like committed to this strategy.
Yeah. Right on. Yeah, it's great. And by the way, the brass orb's another one that has existed since the very beginning. It goes back to the 4th edition book, so I wouldn't get rid of it ever. It used to do the big template. Remember when there were templates?
Yeah.
That's what it used to be. You'd throw it and it would do the big artillery template. So
yeah.
There you go. Okay. Cool beans. It's fine. It's goofball. It's whatever. The Warpstone armor is the next one there. In Clan Skryer. Warpstone armor has also existed basically for the entirety of like the entirety of magic item history. So I have no problem with Warpstone armor. It's a good, like, I have a problem with it as it's implemented here because it's terrible, but I have no problem with it as an item that exists. So we're going to keep the name and get rid of everything else because it's roll a dice each time a wound inflicted by a melee weapon is allocated to the bearer and not negated. On a first of all, only wounds, not mortal wounds. On a 5+, the attacking unit suffers 1 mortal wound. Come on now. That's not armor. What is that doing? That's ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
So every time I take a normal wound, I have a 1 in 3 chance to hit you back for my pitiful number of wounds.
Yeah.
No. And by the way, they're pulling on what it always was, because it used to be like it gave you a better armor save, and every time somebody hit you, every time you saved successfully is what it used to be, right? They took like a strength 4 hit back, whatever, something like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, Warpstone armor. Warpstone armor gives you a save characteristic of 4+. Okay? Not 3+, 4+. Okay. Whenever you make a successful save roll of a 6, like whenever you roll a 6 on your saving throw roll, blah, blah, blah. Put this in all the proper words, right? I'm not using the exact game terms, but you get the general idea.
Yeah. None of the enhancing have been used the like proper game words. That's an editing pass, right? Like you.
Yes.
Yeah,
exactly. Like put this all in proper game words. But whenever you successfully save on a 6, right? You deal D3 mortal wounds back to the attacker. There you go. Like, make him a little porcupine. You got to make these kind of things scary because you're putting a guy in combat, right? Which Skaven don't want to do normally. So it better actually have a chance to do, like, something.
Mm-hmm.
And it better be better than, like, an Iron Fist. Right? So, there we go. Yeah, that's the thing.
So 16% of the time you do a D3 mortals, kind of. Like, you know, when you're already in a precarious situation.
Yeah.
Seems fine to me.
Yeah, exactly. It's only on a 6, but it's cool. It's a real kickback, and it's a neat thing because you can, like, strap your Gray Seer into armor, who normally has a quite crappy save. Now he can have a 4-up save or something. Or not your Gray Seer, sorry. Your Warpstone, your engineer.
Yeah.
I apologize. Your engineer into armor. Right? He has a crappy save normally. Now he's got a better save because he got cool armor on. By the way, it's like that's what the dude is on the cover.
Yeah.
He's wearing that. So, anyways. Okay. So that's good. The esoteric warp resonator is kind of a theoretical continuation of something that has existed for a while, which was like the warp energy condenser and other things that were like this. I don't really have any problem with it as a concept. It's actually quite a good magic item. Each battle round, it gives you an extra warpstone spark, which are very powerful and useful.
Yep.
So if we're keeping warpstone sparks, I'm keeping this item because again, it's just like warpstone sparks do what Skryer does. It lets you do all your Skryer tricks. This gives you more of your currency to spend your pennies.
You might say
fun.
it gives you more currency, like
yes,
like
it does give you more currency. That is exactly correct.
Yeah.
Yes, I agree with this. So yeah, I have no problem with that.
Yeah, right on. There's a natural design to it in resource padding, right? Like that's just might just be something that for as long as resources exist in armies, that there should probably be an avenue to have an opportunity cost you pay to juice your resources, right? Like,
right.
So yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, straightforward.
Absolutely. I'm just gonna skip ahead here and say the Vial of the Fulminator and the Vigor Dust Injector are actually again both quite fun, both quite fine. I have no problem with either of them. The Vial of Fulminator is at the start of your movement phase. You can pick one friendly war machine within 3 inches of the bearer, double that unit's move characteristic until the end of that phase, and then at the end of it, roll a die on a 4-up. They take D3 mortal wounds. Effectively, this doubles the move of your Doom Wheels, right? So their Doom Wheel would go to like 8d6 movement. Great. That's hilarious and amazing.
Yeah.
Like I have no problem with this. Shooting Doom Wheels across the board at ultra speed is a very fun, goofy thing.
You're already playing Skaven correctly if you're bringing a Doom Wheel. Might as well like.
Right, like this. If this falls into the that's a hilarious interaction that should exist in the game. I should be able to roll 8d6 for my movement once because that is fun. Right.
Yeah.
Like there's is it a super competitive item? No. Is it hilariously awesome? Yes. So it's in.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. Slam dunk. Yeah.
That's what that comes down to. And then the Vigor Dust Injector is you can pick one friendly Skaventide unit wholly within 12, add 1 to charge rolls, hit rolls for that unit until your next hero phase. But at the start of that next hero phase, they take D3 mortals. Again, fantastic. +1 to charge, +1 to hit. Great item, great bonus. Good for juicing up your big units and then letting them die to the mortal wounds that happen on the backside. Yep. Like, yes.
As advertised, this is Skaven, right?
Like that's super Skaven, right? Like that's great. Okay, so I said both of those two are good, but I skipped number 4 because number 4 is the Skyre's Breath Bellows, which is so dumb I'm not even going to read it. It's one of those stupid like if you're in combat and within 3 inches, then you can roll a die and in your hero phase you might do some mortal wounds.
If you happen to be wearing low top shoes today, like it goes through all the if thens, like gross, get out of here.
Exactly. Ew is my only response, right? Yeah, absolutely. So like I hate everything about it. It's awful, and I wish that we could just like unmake these dumb items.
See, I always had a rule of when I was writing rules and stuff like that. If I said too many like if thens, or if I found myself word souping, I would immediately take the item back to the drawing board. Like just
Right.
It didn't matter how cool the artifact was, or like what this like. Oh no, you don't understand. This artifact is this. It really is really cool. I'm like, nope. We go back to the drawing board right now. Like immediately.
Exactly.
Like, so that's just one of my sort of principles of design. Continue. Sorry.
No, you're good. Absolutely. So instead, we're going to bring back one of my favorite ones that existed in the first two and then kind of disappeared, and then because it sort of became an assumed item on one of the characters, and that's Storm Demon. But we're gonna actually make this a magic item for real. So Storm Demon was isn't that his names are so good.
That is so good. See, in an alternate reality, I've talked about this before. Like Mephisto is a Skaven player. There was that like brief window where I thought about like righting a wrong, or when I was younger, I was going to play either Skaven or Undead, and I ended up going with Undead. And so when I came into AOS, it's like, well, do I play? It was going to be Skryer because at the time Skryer was, like AOS 1.0. Skryer was like kicking around and like doing some fun shit.
Sure.
And I'm like, well, do I go back? Is this my opportunity to finally play Skaven, or do I like kind of pick up where I left off with Undead? And like ultimately I chose, but in that moment I thought about it hard enough that it was like the episode of Community where they throw the die, right? And a separate reality formed where I became a Skaven player.
Yeah, sure. Sure.
But
so what Storm Demon did back in like 4th, 5th edition was unleashed a big magic missile, and it's his halberd. It's what Ikit Claw is wielding in his hand. It's that big halberd. Okay,
yeah.
That's Storm Demon. And so it gave you +1 strength because it was a halberd, and so like it acted like all halberds do. And in 6th edition, it gave you basically you could cast Warp Lightning for free. Okay. And then sometimes it would burn out. Okay. But even in its old version, it basically gave you a Warp Lightning equivalent spell in the original version. Now, Warp Lightning is now on their scrolls, right? This is a thing that didn't exist at the time. It's just now on their scrolls, they all say Warp Lightning, and you can all cast Warp Lightning and so on and so forth. Okay? So instead, what Storm Demon is going to do is it's going to lean into, because everybody with their people just cast more and more Warp Power because it's a good buff, right? And I've long been of the belief that damaging magic should be cooler, right? Because nobody uses damaging magic. Everybody just uses buff magic. Because damaging magic does like one thing and then it's done. You cast Mystic Shield on somebody or a buff spell, it lasts until your next hero phase. It's providing you potentially unlimited value.
No, it's the action economy of it really is just it's all pluses, right? Like you're all in the black on the ledger. It's so it's so good. Whereas like D3 mortals, unless you really have to maybe kill a thing that doesn't have a ward save, like sorry, I'd rather get the juice, have the sauce across the army. Go on.
Exactly. So instead, what we're going to do is this. We're going to say, Storm Demon, if you cast Warp Lightning or Chain Warp Lightning, basically both of the spells that are on the Engineer or the Arch Warlock scroll, like their actual spells, if you cast their scroll spells, okay, you may roll an additional d6 whenever you cast these spells. So you cast these spells on 3d6 and use the combined total of all dice to cast this spell. Okay? Now, that doesn't sound like the biggest buff. All right? But the trick here is you got to think about what the actual spell does. And the reason why this is so good is because of what the actual spell itself does. And I'm going to assume that this spell, for our purposes, we're just, we're going to keep the spell the same, right? Okay. So, or Warp Lightning Storm, I'm sorry, is his. Warp Lightning Storm has a casting value of 7. If successfully cast, pick up to D3 enemy units within 13 inches to the caster, invisible to them. Oh, we'll also extend its range. So it'll increase the range by some nominal distance as well.
Yeah, we'll get our playtesters. Our playtesters will figure. Yeah, our playtesters will figure out. Maybe it's 26 inches. Like
it might be too far.
Maybe 18. Like maybe 18's the right.
Maybe
amount.
18. Yeah, exactly. 18 always feels good for spells for me. I get the 13 inches, haha, it's the number, but it also sucks to be consistently always out of range for your spells because you have a cute number.
Yeah, 13 and 8, both armies suffer from that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
At any rate, those units each suffer D3 mortal wounds. Okay, so you're like, all right, fine, Vince. Why do you care about the extra D6? Allow me to keep reading, dear audience. Before making the casting roll, you can say this model will use its warp power accumulator to augment the spell. If you do so and the casting attempt is successful and not unbound, the spell inflicts D6 mortal wounds on each of those units instead of D3. Whoa. Right? So now you got 3 units getting tapped for D6 mortals. That's a spell. However,
wait, there's more?
Well, sort of. However, if you do so and the casting attempt fails or is unbound, this model suffers D3 times D6 mortal wounds. Okay, so this 6-wound model can potentially suffer 18 mortal wounds as he just explodes. Okay. Yeah, it's great. It's a great rule. The problem with it is, you never use this normally because it's so risky, right? Because magic is so fickle, right?
Yeah.
And so, like, if you fail the cast, I mean, this is a casting value of 7, by the way, and this isn't a guy with a bonus to cast, just to be clear. This is a hard rolling on 7, unless he happens to be standing near a null hole, in which case he's not within 13 inches of an enemy, probably.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
So, like, the reason why I like adding the extra d6 is because it actually means you have a high enough cast number that you might, like, you'll risk it for the biscuit.
Right.
Right? And sometimes you'll still duff it or get unbound, and then he explodes, and that's fun on both sides of the equation.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, like I was already cackling when I was thinking about this, like Skaven, like wizard, like turbocharging the staff and then exploding because it's just a rocket.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So you get the best of both worlds there, right? You actually have real incentive to use your overpower when you have Storm Demon, and you can actually do some real damage with it. Like, that's not a minimal amount of damage. Like, 3d6 mortal wounds to an enemy army is nothing to scoff at, right? But at the same time, what a fun moment when your opponent does unbind it or something, right? So yeah, there you go.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that's you said like the fun on both is on both sides of the equation.
Right.
It's fun for you when you like, you roll up with the big dubs and here we go, like 3 dice 6 ya. But on the flip side, like that time the caster explodes, you're both laughing at the table. That two-way street of AOS like kind of ridiculousness. I mean, that's why we sign. I think most of us sign up, isn't it?
100% yes.
Yeah.
100% yes.
Yeah.
So there you go. That's the last one there, and that gives you that list complete. So yeah, good stuff. Okay.
I'm still rolling the unbind just to like you roll an 11 to cast. I'm still gonna try for the box.
Oh, you're absolutely tossing dice at this thing. 100% yes, you're tossing dice at this thing, right?
Yeah, great.
Because if you get it, that dude is dead. Dead. So dead.
Yeah. Spicy dead. Yeah. Oh man. That's great.
Yeah.
You keep an empty base where it's just like the little Skaven boots.
Yeah, just a traitor, man. Absolutely.
Sorry. All right.
You're good. You're good.
Oh man.
Okay. So the next up is Clan Pestilence. Okay. And Clan Pestilence has had a sort of very spotty record of specific magic items throughout the history of Skaven. There's a couple that have sort of stayed in here, like the Liber Bubonicus, which is here and allows you to like reroll your chance. That's what it does now. Is fine. Like that can stay. The Blistivus, the Living Cyst, that thing they created specifically for this. It's one of the coolest, most ridiculous,
I love the name.
magic items ever.
I love the
where
name.
it's like this weird living cyst that jumps from Nurgle Hero to Nurgle Hero. It probably needs a better buff. Like, it gives you plus 2-inch move and you can reroll hit rolls. That probably doesn't work anymore. So it probably needs to be like, I'd rather it honestly be like +1 to move, run, and charge or something like that. And you get +1 to hit. Like, that's probably more in line rather than reroll hits,
Plus it's got that Vorthos to it with the +1/+1/+1, like that's the Vorthos looks for the elegance, right? Like in the or is it Melvin?
Melvin wants the alignment of
oh yeah, so that would be the Melvin design where it's like the +1/+1/+1. Yeah.
Exactly. And like that's fun, and it's still force jumps. If you've got another hero near, it has to jump over to them, and then they get the bonus and so on. So like it's a powerful bonus, but it can't. You have to play with the hero carefully if you want him to retain the bonus. Otherwise, you're just gonna accidentally give that to a plague priest and be like, ah. Okay, so that's cool. Like I have no issue with that one. It's a super great item. It's fun. Like that's exactly a type of item I like because it's wacky, right? And I like cool, wacky narrative items like that as well. It passes my interesting test. Right? No question there. Okay. They have a thing here in Pestilence called the Foul Pendant, which, as we already said, is the 5-up ward item now sitting in Master Clan. Okay, so we're chucking that off the that's off the roof. Okay. Firing them right off the roof. Okay. Instead, um, we're gonna bring back something that kind of existed in a couple different forms, but back in fourth edition it was called the Rod of Corruption. Okay, and then it became the Blade of Corruption, and now it's still the Blade of Corruption in this book. So let's start at the beginning of the list. Blade of Corruption. We're going to keep that, but instead of Blade of Corruption, we're going to go back to the Rod of Corruption because Rod sounds way cooler.
I agree.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, what the Rod of Corruption or what the Blade of Corruption does in the modern book is pick one of the bearer's melee weapons. You can reroll wound rolls for attacks made with that weapon. So boring. So boring. What this thing used to do, okay, was many different things, as a matter of fact. Okay, so the Rod of Corruption was crazy, and originally it was a 100-point magic item, which was the highest magic items could be. And when the bearer hits an enemy in hand-to-hand fighting, do not immediately work out wounds as you normally would. Instead, roll a d6. If the score is higher than the victim's toughness, or a 6, regardless of the victim's toughness, then the enemy collapses into a festering pile of rotted flesh and is killed immediately. No armor saves are allowed against the Rod of Corruption, as no wounds are inflicted.
Get dead.
Bloop, bloop you goop.
Yeah.
And then in 6th edition, it became another one of those dumb take a wound every time forever things like that. It was one of those things. Yes, they've loved that design space just forever. They can't get enough of that stupid design space. And then in 7th edition or whatever, it was the wielder of the swords granted +1 strength, and unsaved wounds are multiplied to be 2 wounds. Okay. In addition, if the wielder makes a hit roll that has 2 or more rolls of 1, the wielder immediately suffers a wound that's multiplied to 2 wounds. Okay, cool. Fine. Mm-hmm. So this thing has had like a checkered history, right? It has done 4 completely different things in every one of its incarnations. So we're going to keep it, but we're going back to the Rod of Corruption, right?
Right.
And what the Rod of Corruption is going to do is pretty simple. Like when I think Rod of Corruption, Meph, what in your mind happens if I were to shoot you with the Rod of Corruption or hit you with the Rod of Corruption? What happens?
I mean, there's one or two. It's pestilence, so like I would get disease, but I like the idea of actually like corrupting and turning things evil, like that type of corruption. So I'd like to see a 1-2 punch of the character gets an emo phase, but is also diseased. Like.
So. Okay. So what we're going to do here is we're going to go back to kind of the concept of the original one, but obviously we're not going to insta-slay everybody in melee because that would be a bit much, right? But we're going to use, since we don't have toughness anymore, we're going to use the closest proxy we have for that, which is armor save.
Okay.
Okay. So whenever the Blade of Corruption, like when you attack in melee, once all of your attacks are resolved, okay, roll a die. If that die roll is under their armor save, okay, less than their armor save, effectively is what you're trying to roll, right? The heavier armored they are, the harder for you to get in and get the disease on them is.
Right.
Okay, the more encased in steel they are. If you roll less than their armor save, okay, they immediately take D6 mortal wounds.
All right.
Okay.
Yeah. That's a disease.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Roll this dice again. If you roll under their armor save again, they take D3 mortal wounds. Repeat this process.
I love it. Yeah, it's like a singular like curse of years type effect again, like.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. Right? There you go. You know, like, and you'd probably need to restrict it so that, like, because the point of it is you're, like, I would want to restrict that so you can't kill, like, a unit of 30 dudes with it or something, because that's not the idea of the thing, right? It's about killing single monsters or something like that, right? So, like, heroes or whatever. So I'd probably put some kind of restriction on that says, like, whatever.
It's a little bit of an inside out, like, sort of judgment, right? Instead of just, like, you know, roll the 6, do a d6, you know, and then you're trying to like re-roll and like juice up your attacks. It's like you're kind of like I gotcha. like got him, and then you're sort of like repeating this process, right? And
Yeah.
I mean, you could even like walk at D6, D3, like one mortal, and then like maybe it gets, I don't know, it gets harder each time, or you know.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't want to. I just don't want it to like. I want it to be focused on killing big meaty things,
Yeah.
right? Like once a model is slain by this effect, it stops. Like repeat until you slay a model. That's how you could stop it. That would be a good
There
way
you
to
go.
do it,
Yeah,
right?
that's
So
easy. Yeah.
against a big thing, you can sit there like you get the enemy hero with it on a monster, and you just like blah, 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 blah. Like, and you keep rolling under their armor save. You just jack them up, man. Just that disease spreads right through them.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I
Cool.
mean, and it's fun. It's hype because you're both like sitting there, like I'm fucking just all you need to roll a fucking 4 and like 3, and and
Right.
that sort of the back and forth starts to happen where like I like stuff like that too. By the way, like I
Yep.
want to see
Absolutely.
awesome stuff on the table, even if it's not my awesome stuff. Like so.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. The foul pendant, we're gonna change its name, right? And instead, we're gonna make it something like, I don't know, like, uh, rancid meat of the first disease or something like that. Okay, like, that kind of thing.
Yeah. 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 The
Rancid
rancid,
flesh of the first disease.
yeah, rancid nomicon. It's like
Yeah, yeah, sure, right. It's actually a chunk of like of like a horrible like of an infested of a chunk of infested flesh. That's what I'm going for here.
right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. And what that's going to do, like what the Foul Pendant does, is it lets you unbind one spell in each enemy hero phase in the same manner as a wizard. Who cares? You have like a million wizards in this army. I don't need my one priest to accidentally be a wizard. Okay.
Right.
For just the purposes of unbinding, like, what in all good night? What is this, right? Okay. No. Instead, right, we're going to instead we're gonna do something super fun with this guy. Okay. And what we're gonna say is that the bearer of this chunk of sacred diseased flesh, when he chants, sorry, he triggers a Great Plague on a 5+ instead of only on a 6.
Okay.
Or on a 5 or 6, not 5+, because I don't want to unmodified 5+. There you go. Which is cool. Like the Great Plagues are awesome. I want to play into that mechanic, right? Because it's really fun when you trigger Great Plagues, and they're really good effects. They can actually do cool damage. And so, what better sacred reliquary, right? Do the priests of Clan Pestilence carry than rancid flesh of their most sacred diseases that have killed things?
Yeah. No, it makes perfect sense. Another thing that like could be pretty gnarly to model. You're cutting
Yeah,
up
just
like
holding a little chunk of goo that's
yeah.
dripping.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. No, it's pretty sweet. I see. That's one of those goes back to the theme of the army artifacts, right?
Right.
Like going into like triggering like this great plague, which is something that you don't often see. Not maybe people not even playing against Skaven too often don't even know about this mechanic and injecting it more into the game. Really like going viral with it. Uh,
Exactly.
so
Yes. I do think that that like one of the things missing here is an interesting sort of buff piece for your plague people. I think a lot of that was sort of put in different places.
yeah,
So
like
I
a
do
plague
think
furnace, and for a minute there, battalions had them, right, and now the
right.
battalions are gone. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
exactly. So we need to kind of bring that back in. The other two items are the Brooding Blade and the Fumigatus. I really didn't know what to do with the Brooding Blade. I'm not sure I have a great replacement for that one. Honestly, I only thought of 5 of these. But the Fumigatus, okay. What I want
I
here,
actually love the name, by the way.
the Fumigatus.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Like,
It's fantastic.
yeah.
Like I want a cool like maybe what the Brooding Blade should be. Like it just now occurred to me. You used to be able to give your heroes a cool magic sensor like the sensor bearers have.
Hmm.
But you got like a magic version of it. I mean, they were all magic weapons to a degree, but like you got a cool magic version of it. something like that. I don't have any rules for it, but let the hero take a big sensor, like the little sensor bears have.
Where my head's going with like a sensor like that, it could be like a buff cloud, but actually like a LOS blocking. I know people don't love LOS blocking, but like the fanatic rule,
No,
like
sure. That's what it used to do.
yeah. So like you just like you have the sensor basically that like you're like just this just
Sure.
this crazed rat is just like swinging
Yeah,
above
and
their
he's
head.
surrounded by like it gives him +1 attack, and he's surrounded by smoke and can't be targeted. It's
Yeah,
not considered
yeah,
in line of sight. For
yeah. It's
shooting
+1
attacks.
attack because he whacked you with the sensor and like and
Yeah,
gets the fanatic roll. It's perfect.
sure, perfect. There we go. Okay, dig it. There, we did it. We did it, Meph. We got to 6.
Yeah.
Awesome. The Fumigatus should be changed from what it is now, which is just completely stupid. It's another one of those like if you're super close to people, then roll a die, and sometimes you do mortal wounds. This thing they can't help themselves from writing. We're going to get rid of that, right? And instead, the Fumigatus is going to be exactly what it should be, which is it drives your nearby pestilence rats into a frenzy, right? And what it does is just going to give them a bonus, whatever's appropriate, right? Like whatever fits into the rest of the army, it's just going to be a utility piece.
Yeah, if
A
+1
utility
attack
piece.
is what if +1 attack is what this army needs, it gives that like nearby unit of plague monks a +1 attack or something like that, right?
Right.
Like, yeah,
Exactly. Yep.
we look at
Like,
mathematically what like these are the buffs that are available. This is the one they need. Boom. Right.
yep. Yeah, exactly. Like I'd have to go through and see, especially if this was being done as part of a book rewrite,
Right.
right? It'd say like, okay, what buffs do we need to pass out here? This is the appropriate one for them, right?
Yep.
Maybe it's just like pure battle shock immunity and +1 to hit or something like that because they drive some fanatical. Sure.
Right.
Maybe it sets all of their rend to -1, right? Because they're so strong they just punch harder. Like I don't care.
Right.
It could be any of those, but it'd be like a holy within 12 during your hero phase. You buff them. And by the way, if you try
13.
to
Holy within 13.
Holy within 13, yes. And you could say like if you apply this buff to any unit that isn't Clan Pestilence, they immediately take D6 mortal wounds, right? And like something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Like
You know.
they're getting diseased. I love that. That puts that
Yeah,
flavor
fine.
back into it that I like to see. Yeah.
Mhm.
Perfect.
Yeah. So like if you wanted to go nuts and give it to your clan rats, you could, but you're gonna kill some clan rats, right? Yeah, that's fun.
That's Skaven to me.
Absolutely.
Like you're just telling the Skaven monk is just telling them to smell the glove and like dying.
Next up is Clan Verminus. Now, Verminus has been a clan for a long time, but it really got called out as like a major clan here. And it is Meth. This is where we come. This is where we come to the greatest tragedy in this book. Okay, this whole section,
Yeah, lay it on.
is tragedy. This Shakespeare couldn't write tragedy like this artifact section. These are like the martial warriors of the Skaven. Okay, they're like this is Warlord Queek's clan.
Yeah, this is where
right?
storm vermin are supposed to slap shit. Like, yeah,
Absolutely. And yet, nothing in this list is good. Okay? It's all bad, and I hate it all. And there's a bunch of classically awesome magic weapons and armor that you used to be able to give Skaven to do really cool things. Okay? And they didn't bother to pick any of those. Just blew by them and wrote mostly new garbage.
I remember my friend
Well,
my friend Sam bragging about how he could make a dueling unit champion, like Verminus dude or something. I don't remember how he did it. That like dueled my vampire, and he was like throwing all these numbers at me. I'm like, how do you even do that? And he was just like talking about all these artifacts he was laying on him. It had to be this had to be what he was talking about back in the day.
right.
It had to be.
Right.
And I just Warlord Queek Head Taker was his moniker, as we recall. Like, where's the head taking here? So
Absolutely.
yeah.
And I refuse to put air quotes around that old paint. Skaven are awesome warriors. If you've risen to the level of a warlord, you have killed thousands, tens of thousands of both enemies and allies. Like, that is not. Forget what you've heard about rising to the level of a Varangard. That's easy comparatively to rising to warlord level in a Skaven clan.
I agree.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
So, like, you better be something to write home about. All right. Now we come to the specifics of this, Meph. There is a magic weapon. It existed in the 4th edition book. It existed in the 6th edition book. it existed in the 7th edition book. Okay? Or 5th or 6th, whatever. It existed in all those books.
Mm-hmm.
And that item, Meph, is very sacred to Skaven kind.
Mm-hmm.
That item, Meph, is called the Fel Blade. That item is what destroyed Nagash. Okay? The Fel Blade is awesome. It's always been awesome. It's amazing, and it has a history.
Yeah.
It put down the Pope. Okay?
Yeah. Skelepope himself.
Yes. The Fel Blade in 4th edition, I mentioned that like 100 points is very expensive for a magic item.
Mm-hmm.
This magic item was 135 points. Okay?
Right.
The bearer strikes with a strength of 10. 10. That's the highest strength you could have. And each wound inflicted causes not 1, but d6 wounds on the target. A model carrying the Fel Blade must roll a d6 at the end of his turn. On a roll of 6, he suffers 1 wound from the baleful effects of the weapon, with no armor saving throws allowed. So effectively a mortal wound. So that was just a longer way of saying a mortal wound.
Mm-hmm.
In the next book, what did it do? The wielder has a strength of 10, and the wounds are multiplied into d6 wounds. And on a 3-up, you suffer a wound with no armor save allowed. Does this sound familiar, Meph? You ready for what it did in the next book?
What did it do in what did it do in the next book? I'm starting to
This
set the
foul
scene.
sword gives the bearer a strength of 10. And any successful ward saves must be re-rolled. Any unsaved wounds caused by the Fel Blade are multiplied into d6 wounds. And on a 3-up, you take a wound with no save allowed. That's right, they made it stronger.
Got more powerful. Right.
It got more powerful over time.
Yeah, well, around that time, like it had absorbed so much of Nagash's awesomeness that it got more powerful. Really, is what it is. Got deadlier, really.
So we're bringing back the Fel Blade. If that is item number 1
this
in
is
Clan Verminous.
It's just like a slam dunk, right? Like just
yes.
Yeah.
This is so obvious, and this is where it belongs, right? Like how? How is it not here?
Yeah.
Find this sword, somebody. Okay, or make a new one. Fel Blade 2, even more felling. Okay. Now, obviously,
Fel Blade.
we don't have like
Fel Blade 3 Tokyo Drift
as a concept.
Yeah. All right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's fine, right? But what we're gonna do with the Fel Blade to represent, what did it used to do? Well, strength 10 meant that like you wounded almost automatically.
Right.
You wounded on a 2-up effectively against almost anything you fought, right?
Mm-hmm.
And every wound multiplied into d6 wounds. Okay. And then the later version made you also reroll save rolls, right? Okay. Or ward rolls, sorry. Ward rolls. Strength 10, importantly, would have also sheared off your armor saves. Like, you got no armor saves against that because it was so strong. No armor could be low enough to actually save against strength 10.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, this thing did work, right? It caused wounds, son. That's what it's here for.
Right.
Okay? When you got to kill who you're fighting, you Fel Blade them. All right. So, how do we translate that into the new rules? Okay. So what we say is that the Fel Blade, the wielder of the Fel Blade, gains +1 to wound. Easy enough. Most, so you're often wounding on 2s. Cool. That's going to be close enough. Like that's going to give us back the old number, right? We're going to say that the any successful wound becomes d6 wounds. Roll a save against each.
Yeah.
Right? Like instead of the d6 hits, like the old shock bolt bow, every successful wound becomes a d6 wounds. But they, save against all of them as normal. Okay?
Neat.
And we're going to say ward saves cannot be taken against wounds inflicted by the Fel Blade.
I like that. I feel like the Fel Blade is probably like a Ren 2, Ren 3, blade.
Well, it depends who you put it on. But wait, we're not done.
Oh, okay.
This is a very powerful magic item.
All right.
That
okay.
I just handed out.
Yeah.
+1 to wound, multiplying into d6 wounds. Now, they still get their normal armor save against it, right? So it's still running on your normal rend. Like, if you're only rend 1, somebody can just save against all of those, right? Which is fine.
Yeah.
but they can't ward save against it, which is great. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to carry back that old rule. At the start of your battle shock phase, roll a d6. On a 3-up, you take a mortal wound. Not at the start of your battle shock phase, at the start of the battle shock phase, roll a die. On a 3-up, you take a mortal wound as the Fel Blade's foul energies begin to consume you, right? And it's just every battle shock phase that's happening. Tick, 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 right? It's constantly wounding you.
Mm-hmm.
There we go. So that's back.
Checking has been having cheese puns running this whole time.
I'm watching. I'm watching. They're great. They're great. Yeah.
I had to elect the winner with the Felvita. Just Felvita melts much better. That was the one that won.
It's solid.
Yeah.
Okay. So the next thing I'm doing is I'm going to replace the shield of distraction. Okay. Which I think was in, it was in this one. It was in the last book. Actually, we'll keep the shield of distractions interesting, but what do I want to replace? Probably the fray pelt cloak, maybe. That seems reasonable. Just trying to figure out what I want to get rid of because I want to bring another sword in because there was another really great sword. Okay. The other super awesome sword was the Blade of Black Fury. Like
another heavy metal name. Like
what a super great name, right?
Yeah.
Okay. What it used to do was give you bonus attacks, like +2 attacks. Okay. What it's going to do now is very simple. It's going to, whatever, choose one of your melee weapon profiles, double the number of attacks you make with that weapon.
Right on.
Easy.
Yeah.
Simple. Right? It's one profile. So, yep. Good. Done and dusted. Simple.
Yeah.
We'll kill the fray pelt cloak for that. That's easy enough. Okay. The shield of distraction we can keep. What it is here is reroll save rolls of 1 for attacks that target the bearer. In addition, at the start of the combat phase, pick one enemy model within 3 inches of the bearer. Subtract 1 from hit rolls for attacks made with melee weapons by that model. Oi. Okay, that's nothing. That's nothing.
Yeah, basically.
Okay.
Basically blank entry.
Right. So instead, we're just gonna make this the obvious choice, right? That the shield of distraction gives you your -1 to be hit in melee and reduce the rend of any melee attack against you by 1. Okay. Does nothing against shooting.
You sure that it doesn't give shooting units +1 to shoot you? Like it's so distracting that like
hey, come over here. Yeah. The Screech Skull trophies are I get why they're here.
Yeah,
it's not an existing item. They're here because they wanted a use for the Warlord Queek model that has the trophies on his back.
The head taker. Yeah,
which is fine. Like I get that. So, but its effect is that like I'm not gonna get rid of it because I love that's cool. It's a cool name. I love Queek. So subtract 1 from the bravery characteristic of enemy units while they are within 13 inches of the bearer is just awful.
I don't think bravery does what they think it does. Like
I want to know what they think it does.
Me too.
Yeah.
Sorry. All right. This is worth an artifact choice.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I can see from the entire world you pick here, this would be the thing you would pick, right?
Yeah.
Instead, we're going to make this a super fun. This is going to be our super fun, wacky narrative item in Verminous. Okay?
Big fan already. All right. Hit me with it.
Okay. So, each time this model slays an enemy model, you may add their skull to the Screech Skull trophies.
Hell yeah.
So this is going to have 3 settings, just like Karzarai or the Blood Knight level up effect. This is going to be our RPG item.
Huge fan. Love it already. Yeah.
Okay.
More RPG effects, please.
So if the trophy skull added had the model had 1 wound or less, had 1 wound.
Yeah, yes,
Okay.
yeah.
If it's a
It's a foot
normal
troop. Yeah, yeah. It's a
thing,
battle
it's a
line or
foot troop,
whatever.
right?
Yeah.
We'll say 1 or 2 wounds. We'll keep it at that, like, because that's kind of our foot troop range now, right?
Yep.
You may heal a wound allocated to this model every time you add a skull trophy. Okay.
Yeah.
Simple.
Cool.
Well, awesome. If the enemy model had 3 wounds, yep, right, or has the monster keyword, okay, 3 wounds or more, or has the monster keyword, so big things,
Mm-hmm.
right? When you're saying big things, and by the way, you might make the like 1, 2, 3, and then 4+ and monsters. I don't care, like whatever. Pick some. You get the point.
Yeah, we're figuring like we'll figure out again our playtesters. We got a team of playtesters to like hammer out the details of
Assuming
this
that,
stuff.
yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Exactly. If you add that, right? So 3 wounds or more, 4 wounds or more, or a monster. This model gains +1 to attack for the rest of the game. Like, increase all attacks this model makes by +1,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. If the enemy killed is a hero, okay, then for the remainder of the game, after this unit has finished fighting, it may immediately pile in, or it may pile in a second time at the next available place in the order. Okay, like, in other words, you don't get to
Yeah,
go twice.
Van Hels. It's a Van Hels. It's not a.
It's a Van Hels. Yes, exactly. Yeah. They get the Van Hels effect, right? So you go, your opponent goes, you go again. That's the idea.
Beautiful.
Right?
Yeah, love it.
Because you're never going to kill more than like 1 hero in a game. Let's be honest. Like, how many heroes are you going around lopping the heads off? So it should be a cool effect when it happens, right? It's super rare you get to collect multiple heroes.
Well, I mean, it also plays with some of this design space. I like where they're going in right now. It's like the inverse of where like they have this thing where hero can activate, and then like you get to like stagger in and have a unit activate with the hero. It's kind of like the inverse of that, where you're just like, "Are you not entertained?" Like you take the hero's head and then you like pummel their unit that was protecting them. Like,
yeah, exactly, right?
Like, yeah, it's great. Yeah, I love it.
So yes, if you add the hero skull, then you gain second pile in normal order of activation. Second pile in fight. Fight.
Yeah, I love that. No, I love item.
And it's a cool, fun RPG mechanic. You get to go and take your
great.
Verminous hero and walk around and level him up.
Yeah,
it's awesome.
Yeah, no, I love the level up mechanics. I actually was hoping that my hypothetical Beast of Chaos next book has leveling up mechanics for the Herd Stone. Because like the idea is that they go out and they kill stuff and they bring it back to the Herd Stone. That's in like the fluff and the flavor. And so like for each thing that they've killed, they've added to the Herd Stone, and the Herd Stone gets like a different aura because they've like leveled it up. I thought that'd be really sweet. But table wide rend, like yeah, like I'll absolutely take that.
Oh sure, yeah, we're passing around some wicked bonuses recently, so I feel like there's, I feel like we got a little more freedom here.
Yeah.
To do some wacky stuff, right? So absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I think artifacts should kind of get to break the rules of the game a little bit. That's you get one of them. Like it's. I know everyone gets one of them, so season to taste, and you have to adjust for that. It's not like something you're going out of your way to get. Everyone gets one, right? But they should still. It always reminds me of like how sort of in a basic like sort of Dungeons and Dragons sense. If you do the thing, it's a bonus. If it spends a resource, it gets to break economy.
Right.
Like, and that's what artifacts for me feel like they should like break economy a little bit. Like they should.
Yep.
They should go a little bit outside the bounds of like what a normal command ability says on the War Scroll something's able to do, and just they should a normal banner buff, a normal unit just has a +1 to hit because it's their thing. They use these swords that do the thing, like whatever it is. Like I've always felt like artifacts should just go a little bit outside of bounds, not like balance out of bounds, just rules out of just a little.
Yeah, into neat effects. I agree.
Yeah.
The last two here are going to be slam dunks. So Rust Cursed Armor, there was an item called Rust Armor. It was always stupid. It existed before. The idea that like Rusty Armor is your special magic item, haha, Skaven, dumb, get rid of it, fire it off the roof. No, instead we're pulling in the second banner. I mentioned banners earlier. Here's where our second one goes in the appropriate place on the Verminous people, right? Because they're the leaders of sort of the martial forces.
Yeah, makes perfect sense.
Okay. And we're bringing back one of my favorite banners of all time, the Sacred Standard of the Horned Rat. Like, just a great, like, this is it, right? So the Sacred Standard of the Horned Rat, what it did in like the 6th edition book or whatever, 5th edition book, whatever, was it made your unit cause fear. That was very meaningful. Fear was super meaningful because if you beat an opponent in combat and you caused fear, they had to auto flee from you.
They would
They didn't
break,
get
and then you would overrun
run them
them.
down.
Yep. No, it was
Exactly.
my entire strategy when I played Undead. That was it. Is just to have a big, because you could force.
Yep.
You had fear when you were like outnumbered them, and so you would just
Yeah, yeah.
force break tests and then run them down with my like cavalry, like my whites on. My mounted whites. Now
Absolutely.
that was it. That's how I played. This is the only tactic I had. Sorry. Go on.
In No, you're good. In the next edition, it gave them neg 1 bravery, effectively neg 1 leadership, and and the owning player can make enemy units in base contact with the bearer of this banner reroll any successful leadership tests. So
A little bit more
uh,
meaningful than a current battle shock, but yeah, go on.
sure. So instead, what we're going to do is we're going to say, okay, all uh all Skaven tide models wholly within, let's say, 12 inches of this banner or something, some decently sized radius. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
maybe it's bigger. I don't know, 13 inches. There you go, 13 inches of this
Perfect.
banner. Of course, it's
Perfect.
13,
Yeah, of course it is.
right? Um, uh, gain, basically like, uh, I don't want to make them immune to battle shock, but effectively they're gonna gain like a strength in numbers kind of ability like they used to have. They got modified now and whatever. We'll give them a new strength in numbers. They get a big bravery bonus. It doesn't matter. They're super brave. Okay, like you can still take battle shock tests, but whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But the important part with like that's just the minor bonus. That's the little frosting. Okay. What it actually does is enemy units within 12 inches of this banner may not issue or receive command abilities in the battle shock phase. Right? Fear in them, bravery in you. So then they can't benefit from inspiring presence.
Yeah, it's perfect.
There
Yeah,
you go.
yeah, excellent design space. Like we've gone into that with like the monster shouts and stuff. Like I love that. Good
Yep.
stuff. Yeah, moves and counter moves. Right, like you're spending your resource to be able to do this. You don't like it? Kill my model with the banner. You know.
Exactly. The
um,
last one, the Warpstone Charm, I'm okay with keeping. It does as well have a history going all the way back. It's kind of always done a consistent thing, which was let you do a reroll. But instead, we're just going to steal from the Stormcast. So we're just going to literally make this that lucky charm thing from the Stormcast that lets you like set the die on a single hit, wound,
yeah,
charge, something roll. Like pick the list of things, you can set one of the die. There you go. That's once a game. That's what it does.
I enjoy that.
Easy.
Easy peasy. Yeah, little
Yeah.
Kairos fate weaving going on
Yes.
out of sync.
Only for your own stuff, but it's fun. Right? Once a game, you get to cheat. Congratulations. Very Skaven.
That actually brings us naturally onto one of my notes I'd said that I'd circle back to is I want to see Skaven cheat more. Like cheat more in legal and fun ways. Perfect example. Like
Yep.
perfect example. All right. So, Skryer, Verminus.
Molder. The one I don't care about. I'm gonna be honest with you. Like, okay, look, I'm not a Molder guy. I don't know what to tell you. Okay. They've never really had much of a history of magic items, even as it were. Like, their special creations were their monsters.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I'm actually going to kind of cheat on this section because here's what I'll say. Like, the Rabid Crown is real good, but it wouldn't fly now because it's just straight reroll wounds within a pretty big radius. And that kind of like rerolling thing is gone. So you'd probably just keep that and make it like +1 to wound, which fine.
Pretty good.
Like, pretty good. Um, what all of the like I'll sum it up like this. What almost all of these in Molder should be doing, since Molder doesn't have a Verminlord, they just have their foot heroes. Okay. Which, by the way, why? Where's our Molder Verminlord? Just that's
Yeah.
please. But anyways, what these should be doing is just buffing the various and sundry fighting beasts and pack units in various ways.
Yeah, your help in
Okay.
abominations should just get the juice. Like,
Yeah, like one of these ramps up hell pits and makes them actually good in some way. One of the like would make him super offensive, or actually what it would make him do is faster because that's the problem. He moves super slow. So we just like what you would do with him is ramp his speed in a way, like give him a big bonus to move and charge,
Mm-hmm.
so he can actually get over there. Because the problem is he's a dumb with a 2d6 move on a 5-up stave, so he's just dead. It's like the stupidest thing.
Yep.
Like that is just rules suicide.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So like that's what that one's gonna do. You're gonna have one for giant rats that is called like the pipes of piebald. That's right. I did figure out a way to get those pipes in there. You blow the little pipes and you refill your giant rat units. It acts like the soul render with the Morphan bonus. Like you get D3 plus 3 giant rats back in the unit. Just like
yeah, fantastic. Yeah.
Right? Easy.
Yeah.
Easy.
Yeah. Yeah, you just go down the list of the Molder units and you go, how do we like modify these to be more, to just be more, do more, right? Like,
Yep. The rat ogres, what you would do is you would probably just give them like death frenzy, right? Because that would be a super fun thing. So even if they die, they still fight, or
yeah.
they fight again.
Yeah, and then you would release new models for them.
Sure, you would bring back the perfectly good plastic kits that somehow disappeared.
Island of Blood or whatever, yeah.
Which is what I mean. I have a dozen rat ogres, and like mine are either the old metal ones from the 90s, which were actually really good, or they're there's a couple versions of those that were real good, or I have a bunch of the Island of Blood ones because I bought so many Island of Blood kits, like just so many, so
yeah,
many.
rub it in.
150 clan rats.
Yeah, all the chat,
So,
all chat gang, just like so jelly. Everyone in chat gang who plays Skaven.
you don't get to 11,000 or 12,000 or whatever I have now points of Skaven accidentally. Yeah, so that should be what Molder's doing, right? And then if you want to give them like one slightly different thing, you could pull from any of the past stuff. Like they had like the Electro Whip and the Shock Prod, neat stuff like that. Like give them a cool magic man catcher that just like can boom snap people for big mortal wounds whenever you attack. Like on a 6 to wound, they do, a bunch of extra mortal wounds. Like something goofy like that that's actually worth thinking about for a minute. Fine.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
But most of it you want here is those guys aren't combat heroes, they're utility heroes, so give them items that suit what they actually want to do, which is their weapons are their fighting beasts.
Yep.
So make their items affect what they actually fight with, which is their giant rats, their rat ogres, their hell pits, and so on.
Yeah. Right on. I think we can move on from Molder. I accept your cheat.
It's okay.
It wouldn't be a Skaven episode without a little.
You got to cheat a little.
Yeah.
Because now we get to the one that I actually care about quite a bit. Okay.
Is it Eshen?
Which is Eshen. Yes, absolutely. Now we get to Eshen. And look, is this the coolest clan? Yes, of course. Let's not. What are we even talking about? This isn't even up for discussion. Of course they are. Don't be insane.
I'm half in Skryer, half in Eshen, but Games Workshop has forced my hand by ignoring Eshen for however long, and so it's like, so I like that you went hard in the paint there. You were just like absolutely, like no hesitation from you. Yeah,
they are, of course. Ninja rats are the coolest. Okay, look, I didn't get into the original Kamigawa because I didn't want to get a bunch of ninja rats. Of course, that's what I did.
I didn't start becoming a nerd because I didn't watch TMNT led by a ninja rat sensei. Okay,
yes,
like
absolutely.
My whole nerd trajectory is because of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and or rats. Okay, like
yes.
like that's why I'm to the party. All right, go on.
Yep. Nope, you're exactly correct. And the history of Eshen items is actually pretty cool. So, because they didn't have a lot back in the like oldest one, except for one item. One item that somehow then like disappeared. Like it sticks around for a while and then disappears. And that's the Cloak of Shadows. Okay, which is a super cool name. By the way, we're throwing out this entire list. I'm not even going to go through them.
That's
we're
fine.
Throwing out this entire list for the most part, except the Gnaw Bomb, which is legit cool and awesome to turn random terrain into gnaw holes. That's a super cool thing. I love that this dude can, like, this teleporty guy can pop up and just be like, bloop, and then Skaven pile out of it.
Yeah.
Awesome effect.
It's great.
Narratively cool, mechanically compelling, fantastic. I have no problem with the Gnaw Bomb. It is in fact da bomb.
Yeah,
Okay.
your Vermin Lord Deceiver can natively teleport, so like they would teleport. Gnaw Bomb. Now your army teleports. Like great,
Yeah.
classic.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about the Cloak of Shadows, because this thing was bazonkers in its original incarnation. The Cloak of Shadows is 75 points. The wearer cannot be charged or shot at unless the enemy first rolls a 6 on a d6 to spot him. That's
Yeah!
right.
Yes. Oh.
Cannot be charged or shot at. And you might think in your head, well, okay, good. So the way to take him down is magic. A wizard cannot direct a spell against the wearer unless he first rolls a 5 or 6 on a d6. That's a very powerful item. In its next incarnation, it would become, in order to shoot or cast a spell against the bearer, enemy units first need to roll a 5 or a 6 on a d6. If they fail, they can choose a different target, choose to cast a different spell, etc. So that's what it did then.
Doesn't lock them out, but yeah, okay.
Consistent, right? It is hiding you from enemy sight. That's it. It's pretty simple.
We have a small precedent did in IDK. I haven't checked the new book yet, right? With the Cloak of Midnight or whatever. Like,
yeah, which is gone now, but sure, similar thing, right? Where you would just be like and disappear for a turn.
Honestly,
okay.
I want to see what you do with this because I have some thoughts.
Okay, here's my suggestion for it. Okay, because honestly, what I don't want this going on is a Vermin Lord Deceiver. Okay. And so, like, I would put a label on this that says, like, Death Master only.
Yeah, or above wound count of.
Yeah, like, can only be on heroes with wounds 9 or less, or, whatever.
The 9's like their number that they've really gravitated towards, so 9 or less.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. That would be nice, because then you actually open the door for future Eshen characters that might get created that could also take this. Because their hero list is thin.
It shouldn't be.
It shouldn't be. And the Deathmaster is such a disappointing
Snitch never died! Snitch lives.
So
like,
tough.
I'm going to graffiti everything.
All of them used to have... Yeah, all of the Eshen units used to have ward saves. 6 up, 5 up, 4 up. That's how it used to be. They didn't wear armor. They had Storm Shadow clothes on, right? Like, they weren't in armor.
Well, I mean...
They were just in ninja clothes.
It's actually awesome, though. Like, because you have 6 up or dash, depending, right? And then they just have, like, sweet ward saves, dialing up or down.
Yeah.
That's where they should be.
Yes,
like
they're
now.
Dodgy ninjas.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. But we're not doing a full Eshen rewrite, but of course that's what I was going to do.
Yeah. Sorry, go on.
You're fine. Okay, so basically what the Shadow Cloak is going to do now, remember, this is only on your small hero, so only on a Deathmaster. If the bearer is within 3 inches of any other model or terrain, okay, they may not be the target of a spell or a shooting attack. That's it. There you go. That easy. Like, if they're near something they can hide, again, standard D&D rules apply. You can't hide standing in an open field. But if you're within 3 inches of terrain or other people, anything that would, obscure in some way, right?
Yeah.
You can't be seen. You're just in their shadows. Done.
It's perfect. It's
easy.
It's literally perfect. It just no notes. 10 out of 10 or 5 out of 7 as Haywo would say, perfect.
Right. It just like, yeah, okay. So now I want to talk about other cool magic items that should be in this list. Here we've got to go back to the 7th edition book, 6th, 7th edition book, whatever it was. I don't remember when these books came out. I apologize, everyone. I just have them, but I don't this is all 20 years ago, so I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So Clan Eshen's Tools of War, they had some awesome items. Awesome items. We'll start with the less awesome one, but it's still cool. You ready?
Yeah.
It's called smoke bombs. Because they're ninjas. They drop smoke bombs.
Yeah.
Because it's awesome.
Right.
Okay. So, smoke bombs. Okay. this unit, you may use smoke bombs at the start of any movement phase. If you do, you may retreat. Okay? If it is your turn, you may also charge later in that same turn. So you can do an off-turn retreat from the enemy. Like in their phase, you're like, smoke bombs, I'm out. Right? But if you do it on your turn, you can actually charge back in. You don't get off-turn charging. I don't want to be too crazy here. Okay?
Yeah.
But yeah, you can just like drop smoke bombs and you're out.
I love how measured of a hand you've shown in your design. Like I go very far because I count on someone like you to rein me back in. Like we talk about like the dev designer relationship. Like I'm very much on the I tend to be a lot more on the designer side of things, hoping a developer will like rein me in or an editor will be like, "Yo, look at your math," because I just want to write and get the most interesting ideas out there that I possibly can and worry about the numbers later. And you've shown a very measured hand the whole time, which is really
I want to make these compelling and interesting, but not like I want people to look at the list and go, "Oh, that's really cool stuff."
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like that's something I want to build around. Like that's cool. The other bomb, because there were multiple bombs. Eshen was known for bombs. They in fact have an atom bomb. Infernal bomb, one use only. Except at a turn in which he charges, an assassin can place an infernal bomb anywhere along his path during the movement phase, or if in a unit, anywhere along the path the unit has traveled. A model can place an infernal bomb and march. Announce your intentions to drop off an infernal bomb and mark the spot. A coin will do. The model and/or unit that places the bomb must set the bomb and move away. Once placed, an infernal bomb cannot be moved. The owning player can choose to explode an infernal bomb at any time, except during the player turn in which it was placed. However, an infernal bomb that would explode with its template touching the model that placed the bomb or any member of the unit cannot be detonated. I don't know why. Certainly, you can. For like,
of course, Skaven can detonate. Yeah, of course they can. Yeah.
When triggered, an infernal bomb explodes on a d6 roll of 2+. On a 1, the infernal bomb is a dud and does not explode. If it does explode, place the large round template centered on the counter. Any model at the template center takes a single strength 10 hit, causing d3 wounds. Any model touched by the template suffers a strength 3 hit. Okay. So yes, you dropped a mine, right? Like what a cool concept.
Yeah.
Terrible implementation, but it reads great, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Now, Meph, we happen to have a thing now in the game. Okay. That everybody wants to go move and get near.
An objective, yeah.
Like here, the problem was you put that on the line, people just don't walk near it. Like it didn't matter. There was no objectives. It was just mission kill. So it was a stupid thing, right?
Yeah.
But now, yeah, we have these things called objectives. You may have heard of them. People want to get near them.
Yeah.
So you can put the infernal, like it's a magic item that once per battle, you choose like at the start of the battle. Like there's a couple different ways we can incarnate this, but I'm just gonna do it the fun way. Okay. At the start of the battle, you can choose an objective. You can like an objective doesn't have to be you control. Sorry.
Mm-hmm.
That objective has been infiltrated.
It's
and
booby trapped. Yeah, it's just been.
Yes.
They booby trapped the objective.
Right. The first time an enemy unit takes control of that objective, you may choose to detonate the infernal bomb.
Yeah.
Okay. If you do, all like you have to announce this. It's not a secret thing. We'll play fair. Okay, so that the opponent can make the choice.
Disgusting.
I know, but like
disgusting.
I don't want to catch people out with that stuff. Like I want people to make a choice. Okay.
Okay. All right.
Like if we're gonna do this at the start of the game thing, then people have got to make a choice. Like.
See, I would have done the like note in. I would have went the note in secret, or like where you write it down on your sheet that which one you booby trap.
I just hate stuff like that because it like.
Because our game is a perfect information game, and so when we have rules that aren't perfect information, it feels like it touches a third rail of the game.
Right.
Right. Like you
exactly.
All of our cards we're playing with our cards all face up. Even the cheaty stuff where you've booby trapped an objective should be face up. I get where you're coming from. Like is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So
And you know, look, it's not that I don't love being secret and then haha, I blew up all your units, but that's going to be a super feel bad for what I'm about to say. Okay.
Okay. All right.
Which
all right.
is
All right. All right.
the first time the enemy takes control of the objective. Okay. The first, you may choose to detonate the bomb. If you do, all units within the objective's area of contest. Okay.
Yeah.
Roll a die. Okay. On a 4+, they take a d6 mortal wounds. Boom. You want that? You want that objective? How bad do you want it?
Oh, I love it. I love it so much. I love it so much because you know there's gonna be a game where somebody's been avoiding the objective that you booby trapped and it comes down to what we call the scramble, right? That late game scramble for points.
Yeah, yeah.
And they've just got that 3-wound hero or whatever left, and they're just like. They're looking at it and they're sweating like in the Key and Peele sketch, just pouring down their.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. That's great.
So I like that very much. The 3 fangs is like a really fun, cute magic item that's in here. It's like once per battle at the start of your shooting phase, you can pick one enemy hero within 6 inches of the bearer and roll 3 dice. If all 3 rolls are 3+, and the combined value of the 3 dice is greater than the enemy model's wounds characteristic, the enemy model is slain. I'm gonna keep this magic item because it's so goofy and wonderful, but I'm gonna make its range 12 inches.
Okay.
Not That's 13. What I'm gonna do with it. No, sorry, 13 inches. Yes, exactly. Right? Because, you have to get super close, and it's just, it is hard to get that roll off and everything. And it can't kill big monster heroes, it just kills small heroes, right? Because the kind of most you could get, it just wouldn't be high enough to hit their combined wound total, right? In almost all situations. Mm-hmm. Your maximum roll is an 18, so I guess on, a miracle roll, you would kill, a 14 wound monster or something, but it's pretty rare.
Right.
So it's a fun, rarefied little mini game you get to play, but make it far enough to where you could actually pull it off, right? Not that you have to get so close to them.
Yeah, and they're the assassin clan. They should be able to maybe assassinate you if the stars align. Love it.
Yep.
Yeah.
They have the warp weaver stars, which they have classically had throwing stars, so that's warpstone stars. The trick is the original warpstone stars were real good. This model can throw as many warpstone stars in a single shooting phase as it has attacks on its profile, all against the same target. Treat them as normal throwing stars, but with a range of 10 inches and a strength of 5. Each unsaved wound is multiplied into D3 wounds. It was a good item. Now, it's pick one of the bearer's missile weapons. If the unmodified wound roll for an attack made by that weapon is 6, that attack inflicts D3 mortal wounds on the target in addition to any normal damage.
I like that.
So, I get where they're at
I kind of like
with that. Right? It just doesn't quite, I can't picture the world where my assassin, okay, because the strength of that weapon is completely based on my number of melee or missile attacks, right? Because this is on the wound roll. Yeah? And that dude has 4 throwing stars, 4 ranged attacks, with a range of 12 inches. It's not super far. Okay? So, you're not, on average, you would look at that and go, what am I getting out of this? Okay?
Mm-hmm.
You're getting almost nothing out of that, right? Because you're rolling 4 dice. By the way, these hit even for the assassin on a 4-up.
I mean, I think if you're looking mathematically, you're sub 10% if I dirty math it. You're
right.
Actually gonna
You're exactly correct. Yes.
Unbelievable.
You literally have less than a 10% chance of getting a mortal wound. It's it's crazy bad, right? So if we're gonna keep the whole make as many attacks as you've got, it modifies a missile attack, which fine. Okay. Let's make it actually do something. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And so what I want to do here is we'll keep the D3 mortal wounds, okay, on the wound roll of 6, but we're also going to say any successful hit becomes D6 hits.
I love it because it's they explode out into little shards and shrapnel and
right.
Yeah, I love that.
Now we actually have a chance to trigger some of those mortal wounds, right? So each successful hit becomes d6 hits. Leave him on the 4 up, right? So you get 2, which becomes 2d6 hits, which you then roll into your wounds. So you get an average of 2d3 mortals or something like that when you throw it, right? Something you get what I'm saying, like somewhere around.
Yeah,
It's
you're
not actually
yeah,
D3,
and then you
you're
get
in that general space.
and then you
You
have
get
the
an average of d3. Sorry. There.
yeah,
Yeah.
and then you have the Timmy effect where like if the stars align, the shooting stars align, you know, the ninja stars align, you just like and you like pepper somebody and you just like you have the huge effect that you know that once in a lifetime like my beast lord killed a keeper of secrets like that with the sword of judgment where so I forever love the sword of judgment because that one thing and it doesn't matter my confirmation bias is so strong I will never not love that artifact. The same thing happens but with ninja stars where it like it just feels so good for Clan Eshen. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I love it.
Yep.
I love it. Yeah.
And then the final item, we're just gonna pick like one of the classic weapons. Like it could be like technically the assassin has a weeping blade now because it's the Deathmaster model, right? But you could call it like the weepingest blade. You know, I don't care. You get my point, right? Like pick some name.
Yeah.
And so it's gonna be like, or you could. This was a fun name, the Cursed Blade of Delirium. Isn't that a fun?
Yeah.
Isn't that a fun name for a weapon?
Yeah.
Like
pretty metal.
There's lots of good classic weapon names we could pick. But what this is going to do is exactly what Eshen should do, which is armor saves. You may not make armor save rolls against damage inflicted by this weapon.
Classic.
Choose
Yeah.
Choose one of your profiles. Your opponents may not roll armor saves against this weapon. Done.
Yeah. I even extended ward saves, like no armor ward saves of any kind. Like
nah, you don't want to do that because then it's way too potent. But yeah, like something like that where they just cut through armor. Or if you don't like that, if you feel that's too much, then make it be, like rend a high number.
Yeah.
I'd be okay with that, right? Like move it up to like they get 2 additional rend. Something like that. So they go up to like rend 3 or rend 4 on the big guy. Fine. I'm okay with that, right? Like we can do a cool rend bonus and that's fine. Right. I have no issue with that. But like they should have a dagger in the dark, punches through armor, it doesn't matter kind of weapon, right? And there you go.
Yeah, it's perfect.
Yeah. Pretty straightforward. And that's it, buddy. We did it. That's the enhancing.
Yeah, we've enhancinated. You know this started with this actually started with the episode we did last summer, just kind of doing general artifacts, and so it was kind of an honor to have you back on with Skaven, one of your sort of like chief passions, and just talk about. I didn't these enhancings have had like 2 guests usually or like 2 people to do the artifacts. I'm like, it's Vince. We're good.
I got this covered, buddy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and what it really comes down to is there's so many cool classic magic items in Skaven. And I just really wish that we would use those and or make the Skaven magic items good. Now, if we ever get a new book, which my money's on us getting a new book this summer.
I think it's this year. Yeah.
Summer tome is Skaven.
Yeah,
I expect it'll actually go to like 3 magic items per instead of 6. So I've probably over designed the heck out of this. But I don't care if it's only 3. Just
over-inspired. Yeah, over-inspired, we're saying. Like, we've over-inspired Games Workshop to pick.
And bring back the Fel Blade. Why does the Fel Blade not exist? Bring it back.
Yeah. I've really enjoyed this sort of, like, nostalgia journey. Because, I mean, the artifacts identity. I mean, that's one of the things I've been preaching. If you're losing your army's identity, the thing that gets people to the party... Right, like if you got the invitation to the Skaven party at some point in your AOS career or Warhammer career, and you're not, like you get into the party and like none of the decoration looks like Skaven to you. It feels a little alienating, and this is Skaven is one of Games Workshop's, to me it's a tentpole army. It is one of the most Games Workshop things that exists. It is uniquely. I mean, I'm gonna honk Ossiarch Bone Reapers a little bit. I can play vampires in anything. Vampires exist all over the place. Sure. Skaven are kind of uniquely Games Workshop, right?
Right.
And so I love that.
They were drawn from another source, but really they're the Games Workshop thing. People associate it with that.
Yeah, and it makes sense because the bubonic plague and stuff. I understand like being in Britain and thinking of Ratzes, but like with the warp, the warp energy, and you just sort of getting this sort of like dirty, this dirty like version of Aetherpunk, and they've just really sort of forged their own identity going forward. Uh, yeah, this doubled as a Skaven history lesson, which was great. Look, it's always shows within shows, baby. That's what RantCast. That's what you get.
100%. And like, there's so much good history in these Skaven tomes, and I just want to see that brought to the fore in a real way. Like, it is such a cool, unique, flavorful, fun, interesting army, right? So let's do that. Let's lean into it.
Yeah.
We have all this cool stuff. Draw on it. Use it to the advantage, right? Like, why not use this stuff? I don't understand.
All right. Yeah. So I'm not going to keep you much longer, but I guess final soapbox. Anything you want to get off your chest? Any wish listing for Skaven? If Vince were James Workshop for a day, what would this battle tome be? What would you want from it apart from obviously great artifacts?
So much.
Yeah.
So much. Like if we talked about the thing as a whole, I mean, like if there's an imaginary world where we get a refresh on most of the line. I honestly want the models more than I want almost anything. Even if it was only partial, even if it was like Molder and Eshen getting model refreshes, right? Like, because I actually don't mind Clan Rats, I don't mind Storm Vermin. They're very monopose, but whatever. Okay. Like if I have to accept a lesser if I don't get the almost whole line resculpt that I would want, just give me new sweet ninja rats. They've done so many little hints at it over time. But what I'd want out of the army is it just doesn't actually do anything right now. That's the problem. Like it doesn't do any damage. It just kind of sits there and like dies.
Mm-hmm.
I want to see it have the multiple playstyles. Like over the history of Skaven, it had this multiple personalities where sometimes it was about being a horde army, sometimes it was about being very much a shooting army, sometimes it was about having just endless waves of chaff in front of your your actual things that were doing damage, your casters and maybe a little bit of shooters or whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like I'm I'm fine with all of that. I want to see all of those playstyles be viable in whatever new book we would get, right? Where you can be leaning into more shooting type weapons, where you can have
your Skryer goes shooty,
sure, and my main ask would be fix the battle line situation, because that's really the atrocious situation right now, where we have the worst battle line because you have to be uniformly built your list. The second you include anything that's not part of that clan, you suddenly lose all your battle line and you either have to have clan rats or storm vermin, and that's just not how Skaven work. You borrow from clans, like people, the clans hire from each other all the time.
Yeah, an actual contracting allegiance ability, like literally have that represented in the rules, where like they contract the other clans to show up and do stuff, and like if it takes the form of like a 1 in 4 or 1 in 3, or the values are arbitrary. We can set them to be as lax and meaningful, and it feels like the contract rule is represented from the fluff, but it's not restrictive in the play. We can dial those wherever we need to, right? So like have some like literal allegiance contracting thing where they're or fluff, or it's a hand wave, like, oh yeah, like you can totally like bring Verminus into your like Skryer army because they're contracted. You have the contract rule, and like now you're using Storm Vermin as your battle line now.
So that would be my number one wish. My number two would be or number two wish, I guess, because number one is the new sculpts. Number two is fix the battle line situation. Number three is make Vermin Lords scary. Like, I'd like to see them actually be worth. They're effectively greater demons, and I think all greater demons should be somewhere between 400 and 500 points. They shouldn't be things you take a ton of. They should be scary things.
When one's on the table, you should be like, oh. There was a small window there where it felt like when I saw we had
where they got it right.
Yeah, there was a small window there. I've always been a huge fan of the Deceiver, with like a sort of judgment, just like doing wacky stuff like that, where you're like he's gonna keep you honest. This like they're gonna teleport, they're gonna swing the sword, they're gonna reroll some hits, and you're gonna have to account for that happening, and like watching the opponent like sweat a little bit, and then as the further we got away from that book's sort of like initial like blockages, the things that really people were gravitating towards as like the big problem. This happened with Petrifex Elite. People couldn't see past Petrifex Elite to some of the Ossiarch Bone Reaper weaknesses. They couldn't see past the fucking tornadoes in Skaven to some of the weaknesses in that book. It happens with these armies that have this, like, they show up into the meta with a punch, and then you never get to see past it. I hope people see past it this time. Skaven deserves to be one of our tentpole armies. Like I said, it should always be relevant, and that cavalcade of playstyles can be difficult to balance. I respect it, but you've got a talented team of writers, and I think they can do it. I've seen some armies be able to be switch hitters to the now. I've seen
Absolutely.
it. So you don't.
My only other ask would be uninvent Warp Lightning Vortex, because it's terrible and it's always been terrible to play against. Just uninvent it. Like, you can keep the endless spell. I'm not saying you got to get rid of the model. Like, it's a model that exists, so it will have rules. But just like make it be a thing that shows up and does damage or something. Like whatever. It doesn't need to completely bone the enemy out of playing the game. Like, what a horrible, dumb thing.
Well, and that's exactly that blockage I was talking about. Like, it just that showed up, and we couldn't see past it. It was
Right.
difficult to, right? And
Well, because it was such an oppressive, awful experience. Like, that's just the thing. I don't blame people for it. I really don't, because it was awful to play against. It was just unfun. Like, you wrote a bad rule. That's it. Like, people are allowed to say, hey, I don't care if this is too strong or not. This just isn't fun, guys.
yeah, I don't.
That can be a thing. Right?
Yeah.
And so, like, stop it. Stop making things like that. Don't do that. Bad.
This is where I often plagiarize you. You say this has nothing to do with balance. Like, sometimes you'll like, this has nothing to do with balance. I don't care if it's OP. It's not fun. Like, and I'm constantly like, I've been riffing off that for a while now, as I've sort of developed my beliefs on the game. I want stuff to be great. I actually want things to be powerful, right? Like, I don't want a world of four hits on 4s, wound on 4s, deals 1 damage, no rend. Like, I don't want.
Right.
I don't live in that world. I want to live in the world where you pop a magic scroll and all of the flying units on the table stop flying and might take mortal wounds. Like,
Yes.
I want to live in that world, personally, and I hope that Skaven, at least, if I'm with you, like, I've speculated some speculation. I think Skaven's coming. Like, it might be like a micro Skaven release. I don't know. Maybe just Molder gets. It could be something like that.
I refuse to believe we're going to get models. I just don't think we will in this year of our Lord 2022. And if I let myself believe it for even a second, and then it comes out and we don't, I'll be crestfallen.
Yeah, it'll be like the Truman Show where the cloud follows him. Like the rain.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm hoping for a Gloomspite, at the very least. A Gloomspite gets, but I hope, I never expect. That's my trick. Have hope, but don't expect. Right? Have hope, don't have expectations.
Completely fair point.
Yeah. So that's me. But yeah, this has been a great episode. Anything you want to put on blast? Shout out real quick before we get out of here.
Everybody should be watching the Creature Caster Instagram. If you're not, go check it out. You might find a fun thing there.
Damn.
Check out the Creature Caster Instagram. And at Adepticon, you'll be able to pick up something very new and very cool that I may have been involved in. So check it out.
Right on. And just like one final question. What do you think about the Best Damn Soulbound show and coming back this year? Do you think that?
I think it could happen. It's fine. I think it's going to be tough. Our schedules have gotten much
they're
busier,
so bad. Yeah,
too.
it's horrible. But a couple, like, I did a one shot, and I had 2 little, like, cameo at the beginning and at the end, and like, there was a little disposable line where the characters, like, just were standing there in the wilderness, and they're looking back at the tower, and they're like, and Skig's just like, nah, I fucking hate Zinch. Well, he didn't swear, but he was like, I hate Zinch type thing, and I'm like, that was just like roll credits, and it was.
That is absolutely appropriate. Yes, he would.
So, all right, man. Thank you so much for being on here tonight. Chat gang, you're the show within the show, the reason we do this thing. Remember to drink your milk, pay your taxes, and watch Warhammer Weekly. It's on every Wednesday. And then check out that Creature Caster feed. Good night, Vince. Good night, chat gang.
Have a good one. Bye, everybody.